Please stand for the Chair of Thanet District Council.
Good evening. That's what kind of meeting it's going to be tonight. Good evening, councillors and officers of the council, members of the press and public. I welcome you to this meeting of the council. If the fire alarm is activated, please vacate the offices via the stairs, either through the security doors to my right or opposite the lifts in the foyer. Please do not use the lifts. Please assemble in Hawley Square on the green. Officers will assist you and advise when it's deemed safe to return to the chamber. Now, before we go on, I'm just going to ask Democratic Services just to speak to you for a minute about the microphones.
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, the centre row of microphones on either side and the front row of the horseshoe are not working tonight. So Charles, as you can see, has a roving mic and we'll come round. If you simply indicate in the same way that you normally do, we'll make a note up here, and then when it's your turn to speak, Charles will pop over with the microphone for you.
Yeah, is it true that Charles is very good at Elvis impressions?
Yes, he is, but he doesn't like everybody to know. But he has just come from Kilroy Silk's programme. Okay, I would advise anyone that if filming takes place, anyone in attendance in the public areas may have their image captured. I urge anyone filming proceedings to avoid filming members of the public, particularly if there are children. Does anyone intend to film the meeting? Okay, thank you. If any of any filming or recording will not be permitted for any item of business where exempt or confidential information is considered following the exclusion of the press and public from the meeting. This meeting is being live streamed onto YouTube. Hello, viewers at home. Would everyone present please ensure that their mobile phones are turned to silent and that they are not used to make or receive phone calls whilst this meeting is in progress. Item 1, it's going to be a long meeting, Council. I shall go as quickly as I can. You can either join me in going as quickly as you can, or we can be here at 11 o'clock. I've ordered sandwiches for 10:45. It's your choice. Okay, apologies for absence. I've received apologies from councillors Towning and Braidwood. Are there any more, please? Councillor Davis, Councillor Rozecki, Councillor Garner.
Councillor Munns.
Munns, thank you. Councillor Curry. Councillor Dabrow and Councillor Packman. Thank you very much. Minutes of the previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the previous meeting of Council held on the 11th of December 2025 be approved and signed as a correct record. Would the Vice Chair please second?
Seconded.
Do councillors agree? Thank you. Minutes of the extraordinary meeting. I move that the minutes of the extraordinary meeting of council held on the 8th of January 2026 be approved and signed as a correct record. With the Vice Chair, please second.
Seconded.
Do councillors agree? Thank you. Announcements. Given the large number of items on the agenda tonight, I believe there are 17 or so, I'm going to change the usual order of the agenda. This is to make sure there's sufficient time to discuss and debate the council's budget first. I'm sad to inform councillors that councillors Joe Roberts and Roger Latchford OBE have passed away. So I would ask members to pause for a minute's silence in respect of both councillors. Can we do that now, please? Thank you. Now I'd like to open the floor up to councillors if anybody would like to say anything. Would anybody? Okay, thank you. So we move on. Item number 5, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, please? Councillor Everett.
Thank you, Chair. I need to declare a significant interest in item 9, which is the budget, draft council budget, and item 15, which is the leaders' report. But I'm pleased to say that I have dispensation from the Standards Committee to take part in these items, because the leaders' report might be a bit strange without the leader.
Indeed it would. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Declaration of interest. Councillor Green.
As a member of the Thanet Regeneration Board, I have to declare an interest in both those two items. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dispensation to participate.
Thank you. Councillor Green. Anybody else? Thank you. Okay. Was there another one? Councillor Pope. Hello.
I'm also part of the Thanet Regeneration Board, so I have to declare the same interest. Thank you.
I'm grateful. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Thank you. Okay, let's get going. Draft 2025-2026 HRA budget. Now, may I advise Council that in accordance with Procedure Rule 17.6, I will call for a recorded vote on the motion or any amendments and substantive motions. Councillor Everett, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and I apologise for the fact you're going to be hearing rather a lot of me this evening. It's going to be a bit of a battle as to which runs out first, my laptop battery or my voice, but hopefully it will be the laptop battery. This is the Housing Revenue Account budget for 26-27. Like our general fund, the HRA faces financial pressures. We're forecasting a deficit of £939,000 for 26-27. This reflects the high cost of maintaining our stock and the significant financial burden of the Waking Watch fire safety measures at our tower blocks. To ensure the long-term viability of the service and our ability to invest in decent homes, we're proposing a rent increase of 4.8%, which is based on the approved CPI plus 1% methodology. This is necessary to recover the position after rent increases were suppressed in previous years. However, for the vast majority of tenants, the increase will be covered by increased support. We're also investing 100 million over 4 years in new build and acquisitions, directly supporting our district's housing needs. However, we are operating with fine margins. The delivery of this budget is critically dependent on the timely cessation of waking watch costs as we complete safety works, and we will be monitoring this monthly. But we are proud of the work our housing team does on behalf of our tenants, and it is right that we do everything we can within the funding envelope to make the service as good as it can possibly be. I move the recommendations in the report.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Alban, thank you. Okay, may be debated. Anyone? Councillor Davis.
I'd just like to recognise, and I think as a group we feel the same, that the officers and the preparation of this report has been done in pretty taxing times and troubled times. It's going to be proved a little bit difficult to fully support on the basis that we do have concerns about expenditure, and however, so our position will in no way, and we are not going to object to this, but I certainly, and our position will be one to abstain on this. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Bayford.
Sorry. Thank you. In his Section 25 report, the Director of Corporate Services stresses that it is vital that the Council reduces the cost of temporary accommodation provision. Should this be the general budget? Sorry. General budget, sorry. Could I change that, please? Sorry.
It's okay. Anybody else? Okay, shall we go to the vote? Yes? Those in favour? Oh no, sorry. Recorded. Forget what I said. So we go to the recorded vote. So I call on the monitoring officer now to lead that. Thank you, Chair. Councillor Steve Alban.
4.
Councillor Roshan Ara. 4. Councillor Tricia Austin. 4. Councillor Marlon Barlow. Councillor Jill Bayford. Councillor Martin Boyd.
4.
Councillor Joanne Bright.
4.
Councillor Christian Bright.
4.
Councillor Leo Britcher.
4.
Councillor Helen Crittenden.
4.
Councillor Alan Curry.
4.
Councillor John Davis. Councillor Emma Dawson. Councillor John Dennis. Councillor David Donaldson.
4.
Councillor Jim Driver.
4.
Councillor Ruth Duckworth.
4.
Councillor John Edwards.
4.
Councillor Peter Evans. Councillor Rick Everett.
4.
Councillor Rupa Faruqi. Councillor Faruqi? No. Councillor Phil Fellows. Councillor Mike Garner.
4.
Councillor David Green. 4. Councillor Karina Huxley. 4. Councillor Heather Keane. 4. Councillor George Cupp. Councillor Pat Mackinson. Councillor Barry Manners. Councillor Jenny Mattyface. Thank you. Councillor Pat Moore. 4. Thank you. Councillor Paul Moore.
Abstain.
Councillor John Nichols.
Abstain.
Councillor Anne-Marie Nixie.
4.
Councillor Tony Ovenden.
4.
Councillor David Oxborough.
Abstain.
Councillor Deborah Owen Hughes. 4. Councillor Katie Pope. 4. Councillor Kevin Pressland. 4. Councillor Reese Pugh.
Abstain.
Councillor Mark Rattigan. Councillor Brenda Rogers. Councillor Harry Scobie.
4.
Councillor Will Scobie. Thanks. Councillor Matthew Scott. Councillor Abby Smith. Councillor Helen Whitehead.
Unsurprisingly, 4.
Councillor Becky Wing. Councillor Linda Wright.
Abstain.
Councillor Rob Yates. Thank you, councillors. That has been agreed. Thank you. Members' Allowances Scheme 2026-2027. Councillor Everett.
Thank you, Chair. This, as you say, relates to the councillor allowances for 2026-27. The approach taken is in accordance with the resolution from the council meeting on the 12th of October 2023 that there should be a yearly index link between the allowances scheme and what staff receive as their cost of living increase. That has yet to be decided for the following year, but we're required to bring forward a scheme before the start of the financial year, I think. So the proposal is that once the agreement is reached with staff, that will be applied to the existing allowances scheme. There being no other changes, that would not need to be sent to the ECJRP, the East Kent Joint Independent Remuneration Panel, one of my favourite acronyms, and would come into effect based on the decision tonight. So the recommendation is to agree the proposed new scheme, including the corresponding index-linked increase when it is agreed by staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Orban, thank you. Okay, we may debate this in the usual way or we can agree. Anyone wants to debate? Councillor Evans.
Yeah, given the council's precarious financial situation and the depletion of our reserves, I find it hard to accept how we can award ourselves a pay rise. It would now be prudent to have a 5% pay cut as reform imposed at Kent County Council. Therefore, I propose a 5% pay cut.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. I'd like to point out there wasn't a 5% pay cut. There was a movement of members' allowances into essentially what is your community fund. So giving you more money to distribute to the community. That's not the same thing. No, I need to finish. It's also worth noting what the KCC allowances are in relation to Thanet District Council allowances. So, for instance, for a full-time role as deputy leader, I am currently on 12,000. 12,000. The vast majority of members are here earning very, very little in terms of the amount of time that they put in. And the exact reason that we put this in place so that we didn't have to have this debate every single year is because as the allowance system stands, with us being the second lowest in the whole of Kent, even with an increase, is that it's impossible for people like me, single parents or people who need to work full time, to access this without the allowance actively reflecting what the cost of living is. If we don't do this, what we're effectively saying is that the only people who should get to be part of the council are those with independent incomes or who are retired. I don't think that's true, and I think our council needs to be as representative as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. For once, I'm not going to say too much. I'm going to highlight the fact that we will take our traditional position on this side of the chamber regarding the pay rise, but I'm going to echo what one of our, not our group, but our colleagues at the back has said, in these trying times where, you know, it's quite incredible that the work that's had to be done to get to any chance of a balanced budget today. It would be disingenuous of us to then say, yeah, thank you, we'll take that. So we will not be supporting this pay rise despite whatever rationales are put in front of us, and because we don't think that it's necessary to take any more. It's an honour to serve the people, and given that it is an expense, it's not a wage. It's there to help compensate with the expenses that we incur. Certainly, this side of the chamber will not be wouldn't seek any increase, but we'll leave it to the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor K-Bright.
Thank you, Chair. We had this debate in 2023. It's sad that we're having it again. Interestingly, Councillor Davis referred to the member of his group behind him. He's not a member of your group unless you've got nothing to tell us.
Chair, a point of order. I actually said not a member of our group, but one of our...
I do apologise if I misheard. It's not a point of order, but I misheard. You've
well,
corrected me.
It was a point of order because you misrepresented me.
Well, okay. But the point I was going to make is, and it's also interesting, by the way, that our colleague has stood up twice in this chamber since he joined. Welcome again. And that's the second statement he's made that's been factually incorrect. So it's a cracking record. Keep going. Look, the allowance...
Wait a minute, please. Wait. What's your point of order? Would you like to stand?
The point of order is the KCC councillors did take a 5% pay cut from their allowances, of which I have given to the Jubilee Centre at Sandwich.
I can't hear a point of order. I can't hear a point of order.
The point of order is he's insinuating that the KCC councillors did not take a 5% pay cut. We did. That is the point of order.
No, that's not a point of order, please.
I'm enjoying this already. Look, I'll cut to the chase. This isn't a salary. It's not a pay rise. It's an allowance. It's an allowance that allows some people in this chamber who maybe do struggle financially to do their job in the way that we do. Many people, if you look at the value for money of the amount of meetings, the amount of contribution they make, it's incredible value for money for residents. Some I've calculated it's 500 quid a meeting. So congratulations to those members. But you know, I do think we just need to be honest here. We need to stick to the decision we made 3 years ago. This political back and forth is unnecessary, he says. But you know, let's just get on with it and support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alban.
Yes, thank you, Chair. If I remember back in 2023, we were called. I think Labour, I can't remember your phrase. Your champagne socialist, yes. Thank you very, very much. And our caviar conservatives who carry on. But the point I want to make, Chair, is that before 2023, there'd been no rise for 10 years in relation to the amount that councillors were given. And I think that's it. So all we're doing now is catching up. What you've got, councillor, is what they've already had, and the 5%. If you have done that, you're not losing. You're not losing because you're actually way in front of us. So I would expect members to vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Poe.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to make the point that we want politics to be accessible as possible for everybody, and to echo the points that have been made that we're still the second lowest paid councillors, and for the amount, if you want your councillors to be able to work hard and have enough time to do it, Honour can't pay rent, Honour can't feed your family. So this is a very small increase, and I'd encourage councillors that are unhappy about it to donate the increase to a community group in their ward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Manners.
Thank you, Chair. This isn't about individual councillors. This is about the fact that in 2023, when this was promulgated, that the council reserves were significantly greater than they are today. I think, as we're going to hear later, the council reserves are perilously low. There is a real possibility that we could run out of money before the end of this term. With that in mind, I can't see how we can. You can only spend a penny once. You can only spend it once. And the idea that there's this magic money tree, I think when we look at the budget, we need to be looking at ways that we can save money, as any sensible business would do. You look at all the costs, all the suppliers, and you take them to task, and you look for the best value. And with no, we're all here already. There is no reason for us to take a pay rise. I can't see that we're not going to lose councillors. I can't see that we're going to lose any councillors because we're not going to take a pay rise for ourselves.
Thank you. Councillor Wing.
Thank you. I actually voted against the 10% rise 3 years ago, but I'm totally in favour of this because it takes out our decision making. We just get the same rise as we actually give our hard-working staff. And I don't know whether the residents in the room know what my daily allowance equates to, because it's not a pay, it is taxed. It's 10 quid a day. It's 10 quid a day, and I think today I've spent 6 hours on council work. I know there's other people in this room. We've seen a couple of councillors arrive late, and I know that's because they work full time. And the only way we can get decent councillors in this chamber is if we pay them a decent allowance. And I don't think paying ourselves the equivalent of what we're actually going to give our workforce is going to solve possibly some of the problems we may have with finance. I fully support this, and I actually thankful that the decision is not ours, that it's based on an independent body which does that. And I think people in this room work very hard for their 10 quid a day.
Thank you. Councillor Everett.
Yeah, I just think it's worth putting into the record because of the rank hypocrisy that we heard from the Reform member who talks about a 5% cut in their allowances. Reform councillors at KCC, and indeed all the councillors at KCC, receive a basic allowance this year of £16,226.91. That's the context for the cut they took. Now, I've been told that's the highest council allowance of any authority in England. That's the Reform position. They're filling their boots. The basic allowance at Thanet District Council this year was £5,475. And we're talking possibly about a 3% increase on that, depending on what the pay settlement eventually is. So that's the context. They've got all the money, and they want to take money off of district councillors.
Welcome to Reform.
Councillor Crittenden.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to remind everyone that one of the reasons that we index linked this before was so that we wouldn't end up spending an hour having this same debate every year. And it was because, as has already been said, we hadn't had an increase in this district for 10 years, and we had sunk lower and lower and lower down the allowance level so that we were the bottom of all of the councils, and we are still only second from the bottom, I think it is. So when you compare us not only to Kent County Council's allowance, but across all of the other districts in Kent, including others that are equally as poor as we are, actually, we're still pretty low down the scale on what we receive in an allowance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to close this now and put it to the vote. Those in favour, please show your hands. And those against? Any abstentions, please? Thank you. That is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on.
changing the council tax support scheme for working age customers. This additional item of business has been added to the council agenda in accordance with the provisions of section 100B of the Local Government Act 1972. Within this section, an item may be added to a published agenda if, in the opinion of the chair, that's me, the item should be considered as a matter of urgency due to special circumstances. In this instance, it's my opinion and that of the monitoring officer that this item qualifies as such. This is because there is a statutory deadline by which this matter must be decided, and it is not possible to organise another meeting of full council before the deadline. I would advise, in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 17.6, I will call for a recorded vote on the motion or any amendments and substantive motions. Okay, Councillor Everett.
Thank you, Chair. This report seeks Council's approval to modernise our council tax support scheme for working age residents. Our current scheme was designed for a benefit system that is rapidly disappearing. As the government completes its move to universal credit by April 2026, our existing rules have become a source of frustration for residents and a massive administrative burden for the council. Under the old rules, every tiny fluctuation in a resident's universal credit, even by a few pence, triggers a new council tax bill. This creates a churn of paperwork that is confusing for households and expensive for us to manage. We're proposing to move to an income grid model. This simplifies the process by placing residents into broad income bands. It provides certainty. Residents will know exactly how much support they get, and their bills won't change every time their earnings fluctuate slightly. The key improvements for our residents are as follows. We are raising the maximum discount from 90% to 100%. This means that our lowest income households, over 6,600 of them, will have no council tax to pay at all. We are extending 100% support for care leavers up to the age of 25. We are increasing the capital limit from £6,000 to £10,000, ensuring residents aren't penalised for having a small amount of modest savings. And I want to highlight that this is not just an administrative change, it is a moral one. 96.9% of our current claimants, that's over 7,200 households, will see an increase in the support they receive under this new scheme. The proposal has been shaped by the public. Our consultation saw 74.4% of respondents in favour of the changes. By approving this scheme tonight, we are making the system fairer, simpler and more efficient. It ensures that our limited resources are targeted directly at those who need them most as we move into the new financial year. I move the recommendations of the report.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Keane, thank you. Okay, we may debate this in the usual way. Has anyone got anything to say? Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to state actually that this is a welcome change in that it allows our systems to segue properly with universal credit, and it should help people in terms of their claim. I think it's a fairer and more tiered approach, but it certainly saves a lot of administration compared to our last model where people had to pay a small percentage, but obviously the recovery cost of that small percentage didn't necessarily make sense. So I'm pleased to say on that basis, and because of its efficiencies, and I'm pleased to support this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Yates.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm really happy to see. Oh, yeah, I have to stand up. There we go. Yeah, really glad to see this brought forward. Over 6,000 of the poorest households will not have to pay any council tax. And looking back through the history of this is quite interesting because the reason why we have a situation where the poorest in our society have to pay aggressive tax like council tax is thanks to George Osborne in 2013, who basically said, councils, we're cutting your funding, but if you want more money, you can claim that back from the poorest in society. And it's still shocking to this day that that decision is a legacy from 2013. And I'm really glad that the Conservative administration are supporting this and Labour are taking this forward tonight. I think it's something we as a council should be rightly proud of, to be supporting our most vulnerable residents and households, as we are still in the cost of living crisis. And I just want to pay thanks to all the officers involved making this happen, and it's great to see this being a East Kent issue that is being approved across East Kent. So if there is an LGR, then I would hope that this would be something kept on when we become an East Kent unitary authority. So fully support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davis, can you turn your mic off, please? Thank you. I can see the way this is going. I'm going to the vote here. So now I'm going to go. Is it important? You're not going to just reiterate, are you? Okay. Councillor Manners.
Thank you, Chair. Nobody wants to see people who on restricted low incomes penalised even more. I think it's a failure of the universal credit system that for those in genuine need, it should be adequate that they could pay council tax simply because people need to understand that council tax pays for the services that many people take for granted, and they shouldn't be taken for granted. They should be valued, and therefore they should be paid for. Whether that money comes from welfare support from central government, I would prefer that's where it came from, rather than us give the subsidy. But we are where we are. If this makes life more efficient and better for the officers to administer, then I would support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I go to the vote, please? Monitoring officer.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Steve Alban. Councillor Roshan Ara. 4. Councillor Tricia Austin. Councillor Marlon Barlow. 4. Councillor Jill Bayford. 4. Councillor Martin Boyd. 4. Councillor Joanne Bright. 4. Councillor Christian Bright. 4. Councillor Leo Britcher. 4. Councillor Helen Crittenden. 4. Councillor Alan Curry. 4. Councillor John Davis. 4. Councillor Emma Dawson. 4. Councillor John Dennis. 4. Councillor David Donaldson. 4. Councillor Jim Driver. 4. Councillor Ruth Duckworth. 4. Councillor John Edwards. 4. Councillor Peter Evans. 4. Councillor Rick Everett. 4. Councillor Rupa Faruqi. 4. Councillor Phil Fellows. 4. Councillor Mike Garner. 4. Councillor David Green. 4. Councillor Karina Huxley. 4. Councillor Heather Keane. 4. Councillor George Cupp. 4. Councillor Pat Mackinson. 4. Councillor Barry Manners. 4. Councillor Jenny Matterface. 4. Councillor Pat Moore. 4. Councillor Paul Moore. 4. Councillor John Nichols. 4. Councillor Anne-Marie Nixie. 4. Councillor Tony Ovenden. 4. Councillor Darren Oxborough. Sorry, not David, as I said last time. Apologies. 4. Thank you. Councillor Deborah Owen Hughes. 4. Councillor Katie Pope. 4. Councillor Kevin Pressland. 4. Councillor Reese Pugh. 4. Councillor Mark Rattigan. Councillor Brenda Rogers. 4. Councillor Harry Scobie. 4. Will Scobie not here? No. Okay. Councillor Matthew Scott. 4. Councillor Abby Smith. 4. Councillor Helen Whitehead. 4. Councillor Becky Wing. 4. Councillor Linda Wright. 4. Councillor Rob Yates.
4.
Thank you, councillors. Unanimous. Well done, everyone. Moving on. 2026-2027 draft council budget. Councillor Everett.
Thank you, Chair. Tonight I present the final draft of the 26-27 General Fund Revenue Budget and Capital Programme. It's the first time that I presented the budget here in 11 years. The last was back in the days when we were still dealing with Chancellor George Osborne's austerity regime. I wish I could say that I'm feeling 11 years younger, or that I looked 11 years younger, but I suspect neither of those are remotely true. This is a budget delivered in a period of significant transition and frankly profound financial challenge. The current government has recognised that the funding formula needed to better reflect local need, and that councils like Thanet with a lower tax base often have more need. But the benefit of this approach has been offset by rising costs, particularly in relation to temporary accommodation. Our starting position is that we're forecasting a 3.234 million overspend for the current year. Our reserves have been significantly depleted and are projected to fall below 6 million by the end of March. As the Section 151 officer makes clear in his Section 25 report, our margin for error is now very narrow. This budget is designed to stop that decline by addressing the structural drivers of our deficit, specifically in homelessness, housing benefit and cleansing, which account for nearly 2/3 of our financial pressure. Rather than cutting other services to offset these costs, we're making strategic capital and revenue investments to address the pressures. We're moving away from expensive nightly paid private rooms. This budget supports a £21 million Invest to Save programme to acquire our own housing stock, turning a volatile revenue cost into a stable fixed cost model. We're accelerating the disposal of high liability, non-income generating buildings. This removes maintenance burdens and generates the capital needed to reinvest in our core estate. And through a funding swap using £310,000 in restricted Better Care Fund receipts, we are still able to deliver key infrastructure like the Margate and Ramsgate boardwalks and the Eastcliff lift without touching our core general fund reserves. Now, I know that when we bring potential asset disposals forward without also explaining the investment needed in our many remaining assets, it can feel to councillors like you're only getting half the picture. So this morning I've asked the Chief Executive to consider how we can give you a fuller understanding of the overall situation and why these disposals are a priority. Our budget process has been confused by MHCLG making late changes to the settlement, including some only reported to Cabinet last week. These reductions have now been restored, albeit as transitional grant, meaning that the structural deficit created by the removal of funding will be a factor in 2027-28. This restoration provides us with an additional £185,000 compared to the figures in the main report. And while I understand that it is tempting to spend this money on new projects, I don't believe it is the right thing to do. The formal advice of the Section 151 officer is to allocate this sum to our reserves. In a landscape where our resilience is at a critical low, rebuilding our reserves is the prudent choice. I know that one proposal was supported by the Overview and Scrutiny panel, which was not then viable at Cabinet because of the loss of funding. The administration supports the principle behind that proposal, which is to ensure residents are encouraged to maximise their income and benefit the local economy too. However, the proposal as presented needed work to get a more realistic appraisal of its potential impact, stripping out duplication of things the council already does, particularly through the housing team, and recognising the annual grant we give to Citizens Advice to do similar work. Savings to the council were also overstated. We intend to bring forward a poverty strategy in the coming months, so we believe the right approach is to look at the opportunity in the round. And when we do so, then Overview and Scrutiny will certainly want to review the strategy and can of course make its own recommendations. This budget is the bridge to our future, with a transition to a new unitary authority anticipated in 2028. Rebuilding our resilience now ensures we can continue to deliver our services right up to vesting day in order to enable a smooth transition. This is a balanced budget that delivers on our residents' priorities of safer towns, cleaner streets and support for the vulnerable, while taking the hard decisions necessary to secure our future. I'd like to thank the officers across the council for their work in helping prepare the budget, including identifying the 2.1 million in pension savings and other efficiencies that have made this balanced position possible. I move the recommendations as set out in the report.
Thank you. It's at this point that I have to ask Councillor Pope if you would take yourself off to a place of safety for a short time, and someone will call you back when the time is. Okay, can I have a seconder, please? Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, councillor Alban. Right, item might be debated in the usual way. Does anybody have anything to say? Councillor Rattigan.
Thank you, Chair. This draft budget, this draft budget is supposed to be more than numbers. It's meant to reflect our priorities and commitment to the people of Thanet. This budget is falling short by a wide margin. While it tries to represent a balanced picture, it seeks more like a funhouse mirror reflection, distorted and shaky. The so-called balance for 2026-27 is achieved not through sound management planning, but by leaning on pension savings and government funding like a crutch. This isn't strength. As my grandmother would say to me, it's a classic case of putting lipstick on a pig. The report makes it clear that we're spending more than we're bringing in. In layman terms, we're playing a risky game of financial hide and seek, borrowing from one area to pay for another area, hoping it will all be okay. That's a gamble I wouldn't take on a poker table, let alone with the public's finances. It's been highlighted the reserves are critical, with projections showing that this March we could drop below 6 million. In simple terms, we're reaching the edge of the limit. We need to be able to keep the council functioning. There's not much left in the pot for emergencies, and if our spending controls fails, let's face it, history is not encouraging. When the Conservative administration left, we had £14.5 million in the pot. There's not much of that left now. I completely understand the hard job the leader and all the officers have are trying to balance a budget. But this budget is a clear display of missed opportunities and a failure to tackle our financial challenges head on. We need a budget that doesn't just balance our current books, but also builds a bright and resilient future for all our residents of Thanet. As it stands, this draft budget feels more like a series of unfortunate events than a solid plan. I urge the leader tonight, with the risk of us going under the 6 million to operate the council, he looks at agreeing to set up a budget and finance working group so cross-party we can work together to look at solutions moving forward to steer the council from being completely sunken.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Bayford.
Thank you, Chair. Right, budget this time. In his Section 25 report, the Director of Corporate Services stresses that it is vital that the Council reduces the cost of temporary accommodation provision. Given that the most important factor in this provision is that accommodation should be safe and secure and ideally located in Thanet, can we be assured that every avenue has been explored to ensure that the maximum number of housing units are supplied from the money available, to ensure that as many families as possible are helped in their time of need? It's commendable that the properties recently acquired for TA have been of a very high standard, but given the terrible effect that homelessness has on people, it seems to me there is a case to be made for quantity to be the prime driver in this provision. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you. I'm actually very proud of everyone for this budget, considering if we look at the national picture, we have London councils at the point of bankruptcy in relation to temporary accommodation costs, that we face particular challenges as a small council. And not only have we been able to institute an in-house temporary accommodation project that creates surplus for the general fund, but we've also been able to deliver on all of our promises relating to prioritising accessibility, bringing in boardwalks, bringing back the lifts, so that we know that we are actively delivering the things that people have asked for and need in order to be able to be supported within our society. In relation to temporary accommodation specifically, I'm afraid I'm having flashbacks to a couple of Conservative budgets where I can very clearly remember quite literally begging that we invested more in in-house temporary accommodation at that point, and I was turned down. So the overspend that we see in relation to the general fund now as regards temporary accommodation losses could have been stopped several years ago. We are doing everything that we can now in terms of investing in our in-house temporary accommodation. We are, I believe at 197 today in temporary accommodation, and we have returned 77% of Thanet residents from out of area accommodation. we will be at 100% by the end of next year. I think everything that we can do, we are doing, both in terms of providing quality temporary accommodation in area and as fast as we can, considering that the investment wasn't made earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Alban.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to come back on Councillor Rattigan's talk. And whilst I enjoyed it ever so much, he didn't actually say anything. He didn't actually say what he would do or what his group would do if they were in our position to put forward. But you're expecting us still to do it, which is what we've already done. So I'm just saying, I thoroughly enjoyed it, but next time I would, if I was you, I'd actually come forward with some things to actually work on.
Councillor Dawson.
Thank you, Charles. I believe the council has been working hard to fix problems, money problems, ongoing money problems, but there are serious risks. Overspending and higher costs for homelessness and cleaning staff are a big problem, a big concern. Helping those without a home is crucial, but I question where there might be more cost-effective ways to provide support. If the council doesn't get enough money from taxes and fees or doesn't save as planned, services could be affected. There are also worries about rising prices, keeping enough skilled workers and paying for climate projects. To protect important services, strong planning and quick action are needed. For these reasons, I cannot support this budget. The persistent overspending, continued reliance on expensive agency staff and the lack of firm plans to control costs in key areas like homelessness and cleansing services mean the budget is not sustainable. The proposals rely too heavily on income increases and efficiency savings that may not be achieved, leaving important services at risk. There are also unresolved concerns about recruitment and retention, rising inflation, and the ability to fund climate goals. Without clear solutions to these problems and without exploring more affordable options for homelessness support, I believe the budget falls short of what is needed for financial stability and reliable public services. Thank you.
Charles, stay there, please. Councillor Cupp.
Charles.
Thank you, Chair. And I firstly just want to start off by saying thank you to the officers for being able to bring forward this balanced budget. But I would like to say that I do not easily oppose budgets. I've supported budgets presented by different administrations because setting a balanced budget is a legal requirement and one that I think is one of the most serious responsibilities we have here and we're required to do. My concern this evening is not whether this budget balances on paper, but whether the council remains financially resilient once it is set. With the last Conservative budget, the council's reserves stood at approximately £16.1 million, and current projections place them at roughly £9.7 million now. A reduction of more than £6.4 million in just 2 financial years, representing very substantial weakening of the council's financial safety margin. Reserves are the council's protection when assumptions change, when costs rise, and when the unexpected occurs. Monitoring reports already identify financial pressures in excess of £3 million. Should pressures of that scale arise and require support from reserves, balances move dangerously close to the council's minimum safety levels of £6 million. When reserves are already reduced, the council's capacity to absorb further shocks become extremely limited. In the Sections 151 Officers Section 25 report, it itself warns that the council is operating in a critical financial position to severely depleted reserves. These risks are further compounded by the uncertainty surrounded by local government reorganisation. This budget is built upon assumptions linked to that timetable, yet delay remains entirely possible. If reorganisation is deferred, financial pressures remain for longer while reserves are already constrained. Given the financial position we are dealing with, a sensible approach should have involved confronting difficult but necessary choices about spending priorities. Those conversations are never easy, but it is far better to make those decisions now while some flexibility still exists rather than later when the limited room for manoeuvre we currently have may no longer be available. We all know that unexpected costs will arise, as they do every year, because local government simply does not operate in a world of perfect certainty. Financial pressures emerge, assumptions change, and events occur that no budget can fully anticipate. When those pressures arise, as experience tells us they will, it is the strength of reserves that determines how well this council can respond, how much flexibility it retains, and how effectively it can protect the services that our residents rely on. So unfortunately for those reasons, I cannot support the budget tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor K-Bright.
Thank you, Chair, and I'd like to echo my colleagues in thanking the officers for the work they've done. It's been an incredibly challenging period, and they have dealt with these issues incredibly well. To Councillor Dawson's point, first of all, we do have plans to tackle the overspending cleansing. They've been written up. They are in progress. It's not even they're in progress. The work is in progress itself to tackle that, and we expect to see impacts very shortly. The work on this budget lays out how we are tackling the overspends on homelessness. Every single new property we acquire is a saving on that spending because we're not sending people out of area, etc. And to Councillor Rattigan's point, lauding the not spending of any money. Well, spending nothing builds nothing. It achieves nothing. When this administration took office in 2023, we were saddled with public toilets that were either out of order or hadn't been touched in generations. We were saddled with our open spaces and parks that hadn't been invested in, hadn't been looked after. There was no creative thinking about how to improve things. So what we've done is we've tackled these issues time and time again. And yes, we've had the LUF funding as it was then, and that's helped, but we have found creative solutions. We have looked at different ways of seeking grants. We are making the district better for our residents because that is what they deserve. They do not deserve modern day George Osbornes who would... Thank you. I'm getting used to this tonight, up and down. So in short, we've delivered a balanced budget. We're making improvements to the district. We're delivering for residents. You just sat there for 3 or 4 years, did nothing, and all of a sudden you found your voice. Congratulations.
Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Please stop. There's a way of speaking, and that's not it. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you very much to the leader for the budget speech and to the officers who have put this budget together. Broadly, we are very supportive of it. Most particularly, we are delighted to see the progress that we're making with housing and with temporary accommodation, which is a key area for us in terms of our finances, but also in terms of residents' well-being. And we're also very pleased to see the infrastructure proposals, which likewise will respond well to residents' needs and are things that residents have been asking for some time. We have 3 proposed amends, which we have shared with Cabinet. One the leader has already referred to, which was the one that was supported by scrutiny. Chair, may I ask the leader a question about that, and can he respond? Is that okay?
It's not the procedure, I'm afraid.
Okay. Well, in that case, I will need to read out our proposal, even if the leader is intending to vote it down and do something different later in the year. So our proposal was to introduce a 1-year resident income maximisation trial, working with policy and practice at a total cost of £90,000
to be funded from £185,000 of grant funding, which would otherwise be redirected to reserves. Our reason for proposing that is that this is a scheme that works very well in a number of London councils. It helps the poorest residents claim benefits to which they are entitled, and we know there are gaps. Yes, we do a splendid job in a variety of other services trying to advise residents on this, and we support the Citizens Advice Bureau, but we know there are still gaps. And as I say, a number of London councils have found this has worked. It helps those poorest residents, and thereby it helps improve the general economy because they have more in their pockets to spend. We have two other much smaller proposals which I would like to outline, but I'm not sure quite what the appropriate way of doing that is.
So that was your first?
That was our first one.
Okay. I'm advised that you read all three out and we discuss them individually and we vote individually.
We can raise three.
Because you've got three.
Yep. Can we discuss this one first and then I'll read the next one out?
No, we don't want to vote it on all together.
No, we don't.
We're not voting on all three together.
No, we're not voting on all three together. What I'd like you to do is read all three out and we will discuss them individually and vote individually while you've got the floor.
Okay, fine. So the second one is a smaller one. It is to introduce a 1 year £10,000 Safer Highways Fund for unparished areas without a highway improvement plan, specifically Margate and Garlinge. So in areas where we have a town or parish council, we can work with KCC to develop a highways improvement plan where we develop priorities for safer streets. This has proved extremely useful in Ramsgate and I know in other places. Unparished areas don't have that and they're not getting that support from their KCC councillors. So the proposal is that we introduce that for those areas just for 1 year, and it will be funded using income from car parking surpluses held in the decriminalisation fund and used to pay KCC for road safety surveys that otherwise wouldn't happen because there are no town councils in those areas. Okay? And the third one is to work together with Broadstairs Town Council, introduce a budget of £5,000 to support weekend winter opening of the Broadstairs lift, to be funded from the £185,000 of grant funding, which would otherwise be redirected to reserves. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we need a seconder now, please. Councillor Garner, thank you. And I do believe we've got them written down and printed out for everyone. Charles, is that the case? Thank you. Charles is now going to whiz round at speed.
Can I ask a point of order, Chair, just to clarify? I believe that as the mover of the original motion, I can sum up on the amendment, but I can't speak before that. Is that correct? Okay, thanks.
Okay, so has everyone got a copy of the amendments? They're quite short, so I'll open the floor up. Anyone want to start? Councillor Will Scobie.
assuming the mics aren't working. So I'm sort of standing. Apologies for lateness. I got stuck in 2.5 hours of traffic on the Dartford crossing, but I made it. I'm here. I will not be supporting this proposal, this amendment, and the reason for that is that I think we need to see how the next couple of quarters go with this budget before we commit any more spending. Because this is what we're talking about, the first Green amendment that you put forward. The last 2 years we've set budgets, and then the first budget monitoring report or the second budget monitoring report has shown that spending has not been where we thought it was. And I think it would be prudent for us, and Councillor Everett and the Cabinet have worked very hard to set a balanced budget and have put spending into the areas that have overspent in recent years. But I think it would be prudent for us to, if we've got this additional one-off money for 1 year from the government, I think it would be prudent of us to keep that into reserves as advised by officers, and then partway through the year, then there can be a decision as to whether that is available actually for spending, or if that needs to be used to cover potential costs elsewhere. So even though the sentiment, I'm sure is positive, I personally would be not supporting it on the basis that I think we need to see, because our budgets the last 2 years have been out in the millions, so we've got to make sure we save what money we have.
Councillor Pugh.
Sorry, Charles. Sorry. Apologies, I'm going to speak on all three of these items just because I don't want us to have to stand up and Charles have to come over here twice more than he should need to. I actually agree with much of what Councillor Scobie has said. I can't support any of these amendments, particularly as I agree so eloquently with a lot of what Councillor Cupp said earlier when kind of debating the budget that's been put forward. Any money that goes into reserves is incredibly welcome at the moment. We shouldn't be taking money out of reserves as it is. But I want to make a point, Chair, and I don't know how many times I have to say this every time this happens. I don't understand when there's 56 councillors in here, we've all got computers, we've got a massive projector screen up there, and we've now got 56 sheets of this paper, this being printed, when we've declared a climate emergency. We're constantly trying to be more responsible. We're putting money into programmes, and this has been printed on half a sheet of paper. I am just absolutely aghast that, again, we're talking about a budget and amendments. Oh, it doesn't matter. I'll recycle it, Councillor Austin, because it doesn't seem to matter that we keep talking about trying to make savings and then we're printing out all of this pointless paper. I just can't understand why we keep doing this over and over again. So I'm sorry that that's the main point I'm trying to make, but it's just infuriating that, and it's not Councillor Austin's fault, even though this is a Green amendment. It's not their fault that it's been printed out, but I just don't understand. If I have to bring a motion forward at next full council to try and get this point across, I will, but I don't want to keep wasting everyone's time. I've said it about 3 or 4 times in the last 3 or 4 years. I please, for God's sake, let's not, I don't want to take the Lord's name in vain, but let's stop absolutely doing this. It's just pointless. Thank you.
Councillor Oxborough.
Yes, this is on the Green Amendment 2. I have actually, just for disclosure, submitted a highways improvement plan for Garlinge, which you wouldn't have been aware of, but is with KCC at the moment. So, okay.
Councillor Manners.
Thank you, Chair. As much as I would love to support some, if not all, of these amendments, the truth is, as we've heard this evening, that our finances, our reserves are of kind of titanic disaster proportions, potentially. I'm not a parent, but I can imagine how it feels not to be able to pay the mortgage, and then one of the kids comes home and wants to go on a school trip. There isn't the money for any of this, as far as I'm aware. And £185,000 going back into reserves is very welcome, even though it's way too little. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Yates.
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to clarify Amendment 2, because I think you haven't read it, because this money does not come from the general fund budget. This comes from our decrim reserve, which is specifically for highways. It cannot be spent on general fund issues. It can only be spent on highways. It's in effect, we have permission to spend up to, I think, £150,000 of it without asking for KCC permission, and this is for safety issues. And the reason why this has been brought up is that we had a real issue in Hartsdown Park where zebra crossing needed to be built, and KCC said to us, we don't have the money to fund the survey. So at the time, TDC funded, I think, a few £1,000s. One of our officers sent the purchase order to KCC. KCC then did the survey. And 2 years later, a new zebra crossing is built thanks to TDC's money. So this isn't coming from the general fund. This cannot affect our reserve position. So Amendment 2, please just note that this is completely separate. It's about the decrim reserve, which can only be spent on highways. And it's £10,000. It doesn't touch the sides really. So please consider that carefully, because I think that one is a serious issue. When it comes to the relatively new KCC councillor who said there is a highway improvement plan for Garland, that's great. I spoke to the road traffic officer for KCC recently, and there is still no highway improvement plan for Margate. So the Reform councillor there is being completely incompetent as far as I'm concerned, and putting the lives at risk of Margate residents. We need a highway improvement plan, and this money could help Margate councillors at TDC to come up with schemes so we can support that, because Reform councillor is just completely incompetent at not being able to provide any kind of highway improvements for Margate. Going on to Green Amendment 1, resident income maximisation trial. The cost of this is being mentioned a lot, so let's address that.
Sorry, Councillor Yates, sorry,
Yes.
I just need to go back a sentence or two, and just remind you of respect. So to say the councillors are incompetent is just a little over the line for me.
Okay.
So please be careful.
I'll be careful, thank you. Moving on to Green Amendment 2. So Green Amendment 1, resident income maximisation trial and the cost of this. I think we all need to think about residents in this room. 54% of children in the UK are living in households where they're on universal credit. Thanet is the most deprived local authority in Kent. This scheme aims to put money into the residents' hands directly. And how does this affect finances? Well, if our lowest income families have more money in their pockets, they're less likely to be made homeless. They're less likely to require the TA that's causing the budget issues in our council. Less likely to require additional support that costs this council money. So from my side, I think this could be argued as an invest to save initiative, because it's actually making it less likely the residents will require TA services and housing and homelessness services. And it's something that I know Councillor Austin and other councils across the country are doing, and it's working. Just one very, very quick example. I don't know if everyone's seen the dirty water on Channel 4, but Gravesham Council has worked with Southern Water and helped 3,200 residents onto their social tariff with Southern Water. And that's saved £572,000 a year for those residents to be able to spend on local services and local economy. So I think there's real benefits, and that's just one campaign, and this whole scheme can pay for 4 campaigns a year. So it can be done on invest to save, in my opinion, and more money into residents' pockets is a good thing, and especially when it's coming from Southern Water. Thank you.
Councillor Cabright.
You said that at the start we would take them in time, and that Councillor Austin would read them out, but we would debate them one by one and then vote on them. But people are jumping all over the place. When I rose to speak, I spoke about Amendment 1 because that was the way we sort of set it out. What's the structure of the debate here?
Yeah, I did say we would take them all because it's such a long meeting and we are going to vote individually on them. So we're just going to stay with one right now. Stay with one. I've got your names down. If you're going to change, if you were going to speak on another one, just give me the nod. Stay with one right now. Anybody on one? I've got Councillor Bright next. Was you going to speak on Amendment 1?
I'll speak very briefly, Chair. Green Amendment 1 has been through overview and scrutiny. It's been through Cabinet. It's received tacit support in terms of we agree with the principle, but the reasons why we would not be making that amendment have been explained today. I don't know why we're debating it a third time, because I'm assuming my view hasn't changed in that we need to look into the true costs. We need to look into what this council's doing already, because again, it is our priorities, as you know. So I don't see a case for making that amendment at this point, because we very well may be and probably are doing a lot of this work already.
Councillor Davis, are you on Amendment 1? Yep, off you go.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to highlight the fact that whatever we can do to support our residents, we should be doing. And morally, I think there's some good ideas here. However, we're in a situation that is very clear, and a parlous situation on the trajectory that we're on. And I'm going to quote the advice of the 151 officer, I believe it was at Cabinet, who said that the focus had to be and should be, prudent focus is on restoring our reserves. Because we can have the greatest ideas under the sun about how to please people and how to serve them, but we are here to serve and protect them. And if there is a major incident and our reserves are run down to, let's look at something. These reserves are at the level they were back in 2017, I think, when we had to clear up the mess made by 3 years of the UKIP administration. And the reserves were as low then as they are headed for now, and hopefully, so I know we're talking about projections and we're only at 9 at the moment, but if we end up where we are, it is that parlous. Part of the reason that some of the toilets, the floors were a bit cracked and they were a bit past their best and everything, but was because they're not a statutory delivery, and consequently one of the cost saving measures was to rein in. And I hate the word austerity, I think it's much overused, but what we had to do as when the Conservative administration was in, was rebuild those reserves, which over several years we did a very proud job and got them back up to 16 million. In two years, we're back down again. So that's 5 million a year hemorrhaged. Now, we can stand here and have a great post-mortem and blame each other and blame everyone else. What we have to do is find a meaningful process or meaningful forward direction that restores that security, because as I say, that is our duty to our residents, is to be able to cater for them, and that's what the reserves are for. So I'm afraid on that basis we should not be looking at spending anything. It should all be going back into reserves to get a stable base on which we can then perhaps find cost-effective ways to deliver the very nice things that we would like to do. But in the meantime, this is time to haul in the horns, tighten our belts. And so for that reason, we won't be supporting any of these amendments, I'm afraid.
Okay,
and we will be taking the advice of the 151 officer, which is that, focus on rebuilding reserves. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Alban, you're speaking? No? Okay. Councillor Rattigan? No, hold that thought, and I will come back to you. Councillor Keane, you're speaking on Amendment 1. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm all for increasing the money in residents' pockets, but we have got our poverty strategy coming forward, or tackling poverty, I should say. And I think it's really important that we wait for that. We gather all the information on what we're already doing and find out what needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on Amendment 1? Okay, let's go to the vote. Needs to be recorded. Over to the monitoring officer.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Steve Alban.
Again.
Councillor Roshan Ara.
Against.
Councillor Tricia Austin. Councillor Marlon Barlow. Sorry, what was that? Oh, gone. Councillor Jill Bayford.
Against.
Councillor Martin Boyd.
Against.
Councillor Joanne Bright.
Against.
Councillor Christian Bright.
Against.
Councillor Leo Britcher. Councillor Helen Crittenden. Councillor Alan, thank you. Councillor Alan Curry. Councillor John Davis. Councillor Emma Dawson. Councillor John Dennis. Councillor David Donaldson. Councillor Jim Driver. Councillor Ruth Duckworth.
Against.
Councillor John Edwards. Councillor Peter Evans. Councillor Rick Everett.
Against.
Councillor Rupa Faruqi.
Against.
Councillor Phil Fellows. Councillor Mike Garner. Councillor David Green. Councillor Karina Huxley. Councillor Heather Keane. Councillor George Cupp. Councillor Pat Mackinson.
Against.
Councillor Barry Manners. Councillor Jenny Matterface.
Against.
Councillor Pat Moore.
Against.
Councillor Paul Moore. Councillor Alan Munns. Oh yeah, sorry. Councillor John Nichols. Councillor Anne-Marie Nixie.
Against.
Councillor Tony Ovenden. Councillor Darren Oxborough. Councillor Deborah Owen Hughes. Councillor Katie Pope. Oh, she's not here, sorry. Councillor Kevin Pressland. Councillor Reese Pugh. Councillor Mark Rattigan. Councillor Brenda Rogers. Councillor Harry Scobie.
Against.
Councillor Will Scobie.
Against.
Councillor Matthew Scott. Councillor Abby Smith. Councillor Helen Whitehead. Councillor Becky Wing. Councillor Linda Wright. And Councillor Rob Yates. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you. That amendment has fallen. So we now move on to Green Amendment number 2. And I've got on my list here Councillor Rattigan.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one. Just wanted to check from Chris, because obviously if it's not coming out of the reserves, then obviously it's a completely different matter. Can Chris just clarify whether or not that is actually out of the reserves, or is it completely separate fund?
No, you can't, I'm afraid, no. Anybody else want to speak? Councillor Kay Bright.
I can give you an answer. The point is in here. It's from the decrim fund, so that's income that the council makes from parking revenue can be used within the district on environmental or parking matters. So technically, yep, it can be used. I think that I won't be voting for this for two reasons. One reason is that decrim money can be looked at any stage during the year. We don't need to make any decisions about it at all at council, and it's something that we could talk about in the same way as I've talked to the green group about bike hangers, for example. So that kind of it could potentially fall within there. I'm not sure that 10k would even touch the sides in putting together a highways improvement plan. And which officers in which council would be working on it. So that would be my other arguments. And I would actually, and I absolutely agree, it's vital that Margate has a highway improvement plan and that Garlinge has a highway improvement plan. We know the stats on young people and road traffic accidents. It's absolutely vital. Broadstairs doesn't yet have one. We're working on one. But I would remind Councillor Yates that a highway improvement plan will not be passed unless you get the cooperation and you work with your KCC member. Now, as galling as that might be, you need to consider that next time you stand up and speak. It's galling, but you have to do that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else on Amendment 2? Councillor Everett.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say, I don't know a great deal about highway improvement plans because I'm not on a parish council, I'm not on the county council, and it's not, as I understand it, a function of this council to produce them. I don't really understand where this money would be going. We're setting a budget. Is it money that we pay to Kent County Council? Are we then expecting our own officers to do work with it? I don't. And without that clarity, I can't support it, I'm afraid. But as the point's been made by Councillor Bright, if it's decrim money, then it is something that could be considered later. If it was a worked up proposal, we don't need to make a decision about it here.
Can't call you, I'm afraid. Councillor Everett summed up. Okay, Green Amendment 2, we're going to go to the vote. It's also recorded. So, monitoring officer.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Steve Alban.
Against.
Councillor Roshan Ara.
Against.
Councillor Tricia Austin. Councillor Marlon Barlow, not here. Councillor Jill Bayford.
Against.
Councillor Martin Boyd.
Against.
Councillor Joanne Bright.
Against.
Councillor Christian Bright.
Against.
Councillor Leo Bitcher. Councillor Helen Crittenden. Councillor Alan Curry. Councillor John Davis. Councillor Emma Dawson. Councillor John Dennis. Councillor David Donaldson. Councillor Jim Driver. Councillor Ruth Duckworth.
Against.
Councillor John Edwards. Councillor Peter Evans. Councillor Rick Everett.
Against.
Councillor Rupa Faruqi.
Against.
Councillor Phil Fellows. Councillor Mike Garner. Councillor David Green. Councillor Karina Huxley. Councillor Heather Keane. Councillor George Cupp. Councillor Pat Mackinson.
Against.
Councillor Barry Manners. Councillor Jenny Matterface.
Against.
Councillor Pat Moore. Councillor Paul Moore. Councillor John Nichols. Councillor Anne-Marie Nixie.
Against.
Councillor Tony Ovenden. Councillor Darren Oxborough. Councillor Deborah Owen Hughes. Councillor Kevin Pressland. Councillor Reese Pugh. Councillor Mark Rattigan. Councillor Brenda Rogers. Councillor Harry Scobie. Councillor Will Scobie. Councillor Matthew Scott. Councillor Abby Smith. Councillor Helen Whitehead. Councillor Becky Wing. Councillor Linda Wright. Councillor Rob Yates. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you. That amendment has fallen. Green Amendment now number 3. Who'd like to kick off? Councillor Cabright.
Me again. This one's in my ward, so I feel it's important to speak on it because I've obviously done work on this before. I agree that it would be great to have this lift in operation over the winter. 5k doesn't touch the sides. I think the last estimate I got from officers was that running it would cost at least 12. That doesn't include any additional engineering works, any additional repairs that need to be done, bring any inspections that need to be done. You can wave at me, but I'm not. Well, I've got an email here saying exactly how much it'll be. The engine housing is at the base of the lift, which means that it is subject to corrosion. It gets clogged up with sand. If it's working, they base that cost on what happens to it over the winter when they first do the inspections, when they reopen it. You're shaking your head. I've got an email here on it. It would not only probably be out of action most of the time if the engine isn't replaced, because if we put it at the top, it would be a lot better. But if we use it over the winter, the lift would be out of action most of the time because it would continuously be clogging up. It would be rusting, etc. It just isn't feasible, and the operating costs alone make it just unsustainable. I want to open it, but I would love to get a grant and replace the engine housing and get it operating from the top to actually make sure it's fit for purpose.
Councillor Orban.
Sorry. Thank you, Chair. All I wanted to say was that we're not taking the money out of 180,000. That isn't going to happen. And what I would suggest is you refer to Broadstairs Town Council. Let Broadstairs Town Council make its mind up how it wants to spend its money. And if this is so important to Broadstairs Town Council, then they should make that decision to spend the money on that lift and then work it themselves. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Bayford.
Thank you, Chair. I do agree on this occasion with Councillor Bright. I think that this is a gross underestimation of the amount of money that would need to be spent on this lift. It breaks down regularly. There is access to the beach for the disabled. Yes, in an ideal world, it would be good to be able to provide this, but I think at the moment it's something which we shouldn't even consider. Thank you.
Councillor Garner.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I just wanted to say that many of us, I mean, I hear what Councillor Bright said. I know many of us have, especially those of us like him, based in Broadstairs, we're aware of the campaign that's been run by Barry Stickings and a number of other accessibility campaigners in the town for the lift down to Viking Bay to be open at the weekends during the winter months. I'm sure most of us remember that over 5,000 people signed a petition a year or so ago to this effect. And that's why we've brought this motion. We've spoken to officers, we've had figures about having it open all week during the winter and about having it open at the weekend, and these are the figures we've got. So that's why they're there. The campaigners have been lobbying for this regularly since, and last summer they had positive meetings with our MP, Polly Billington, and others, including some councillors here this evening, all of whom have committed to improve accessibility to Viking Bay and around the town. So this amendment is our way of helping to enable our MP and those others to deliver on their commitments. So I hope you can support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Manners.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I certainly would love to be able to support better accessibility for the lift at Broadstairs, and also I know that it's a great asset for the visitor economy, but it comes back to lack of funds. So unfortunately, I won't be able to support the amendment. I would point out, though, that if Councillor Bright could moderate his contempt for people that don't share his political views, I'm thinking with the recent exchange with Councillor Austin, and if he could work on his communication skills rather than and somehow mask his contempt, that we might have a more functional council.
Point of order, is this relevant?
No, I was just going to come in. Actually, it's not relevant. Have you finished? Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Councillor Whitehead.
Just in relation to the lift, the problem that we've always had in relation to the Broadstairs lift is that the costs relating to opening are revenue rather than capital. So from a personal perspective, I think a much larger piece of work needs to be done around how Broadstairs Town Council and us can work together, because the funding that we have is generally capital. We therefore can't provide staffing in that sense. It doesn't mean we don't want to, and it doesn't mean it isn't something that we're looking at. It just means that it can't be funded from a capital fund.
Councillor Scobie.
Just sort of reflecting on all three amendments, but speaking specifically to Amendment 3. I mean, trying to sort of work out how anybody can look at the budget report and where the language that the officers are using in it, and obviously the debate and discussion, and think, if we've got an extra £165,000, let's spend it as fast as possible. Surely the performance of the council financially for the last 2 years, with our projections and overspending, and the state of our reserves, should be that we would be being very, very careful. That's exactly what this budget is. Careful. It's putting money into frontline services. And then it sort of hit me. Well, of course the Greens are proposing it, because they have a member in their group who is the person responsible for, over the last 2 or 3 years, overseeing what's happened with these budgets. And while there's a lot of understandable reasons for that, homelessness, the issues with housing benefit underpayments, the reality is, Chair, that around sort of summer last year, reports were coming through showing the scale of the issues And the person who was responsible for the finance, who was part of this administration, sat in that seat for 3 years, resigned and went to the Green Party and did not take responsibility for that decision. So I do think we need to get this in reality, because I know what's going to happen coming out of this. We're going to have on green leaflets or on social media saying that they put forward these valiant proposals for things in the community and we all ganged up as the main party to vote it down, when the reality here is there is no money. And if you want to know where that money went, maybe you should ask your newest member, because for me there was a real moment where this sort of came to crystallization. I was in a meeting, a governance and audit risk subcommittee with Councillor Garner and Councillor Yates and officers, where we were being informed about how difficult the council's finances were, and this was in September. And I remember it was a very strange meeting because I was asking lots of questions, we were getting good information, and the next day you obviously saw the defection happen, and they defected straight after that meeting, after being told how difficult the decisions were going to be, and the person that would have to do that decided, oh, actually, I don't want to make those difficult decisions. I'm going to go into opposition and put forward amendments like this that's just spend. I'm sorry, Chair, we have to vote this down.
Okay, anyone else? Anyone else? Councillor Everett, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously sympathetic to opening the Broadstairs lifts longer hours, and I understand that there is a public sentiment for that to happen. I don't think that this is a realistic or sensible proposal that would enable it to happen. I don't think it properly reflects the likely costs. But what I will say to the Green Group is that they are aware that we have identified a sum of money in the Better Care Fund, which we are using, particularly on the Ramsgate lift. Now, that is capital. You can't use it to extend opening hours, but you could potentially make a capital investment in that lift, which would make it more robust and might enable longer opening hours without the kind of maintenance problems which Councillor Bright's referred to, and I think has been right to refer to. So what I will say to them is I have asked officers to bring a report on the Better Care Fund. I don't know what that report's going to say. It might say you can't spend any more money because we need it all for disabled facilities grants. It might not, but I think at that point we can have a look and see if there is anything we can do for that lift, because we're going to sort the lift out in Ramsgate, and if we can improve the lift in Broadstairs as well, then I'd be very keen to do that.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go to the vote. It's another recorded vote, so I call upon the monitoring officer.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Steve Alban.
Against.
Councillor Roshan Ara.
Against.
Councillor Tricia Austin. Councillor Marlon Barlow's gone. Councillor Jill Bayford.
Against.
Councillor Martin Boyd.
Against.
Councillor Joanne Bright.
Against.
Councillor Christian Bright.
Against.
Councillor Leo Britcher.
Against.
Councillor Helen Crittenden.
Against.
Councillor Alan Curry.
Against.
Councillor John Davis.
Against.
Councillor Emma Dawson. Councillor John Dennis. Councillor David Donaldson. Councillor Jim Driver.
Against.
Councillor Ruth Duckworth.
Against.
Councillor John Edwards. Councillor Peter Evans. Councillor Rick Everett.
Against.
Councillor Rupa Faruqi.
Against.
Councillor Phil Fellows. Councillor Mike Garner. Councillor David Green. Councillor Karina Huxley.
Against.
Councillor Heather Keane.
Against.
Councillor George Cupp.
Against.
Councillor Pat Mackinson.
Against.
Councillor Barry Manners.
Against.
Councillor Jenny Matterface.
Against.
Councillor Pat Moore.
Against.
Councillor Paul Moore.
Against.
Councillor John Nichols.
Against.
Councillor Anne-Marie Nixie.
Against.
Councillor Tony Ovenden.
Against.
Councillor Darren Oxborough. Councillor Deborah Owen Hughes.
Against.
Councillor Jack Packman's not here, is he? Katie Pope's not here. Councillor Kevin Pressland. Councillor Reese Pugh.
Against.
Councillor Mark Rattigan.
Against.
Councillor Brenda Rogers. Councillor Harry Scobie.
Against.
Councillor Will Scobie.
Against.
Councillor Matthew Scott. Councillor Abby Smith. Councillor Helen Whitehead. Councillor Becky Wing. Councillor Linda Wright. Councillor Rob Yates. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you. That amendment is lost. So we are going back to the original item. You remember that some time ago. Now I'm going to pick up where I've got a list of speakers that wanted to speak. These people have already spoken on the original item and cannot speak again. So I'm just telling you this so you don't wave at me and I say no. So it's councillors Rattigan, Bayford, Whitehead, Alban, Dawson, Cabright, Cupp, Austin. You have already spoken on the original item, so that's it for you, I'm afraid. So we get. I know, that's so harsh. So we pick it up. Councillor Davis, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. This is going to be a test of recall, isn't it? Now, where were we? I think just what I want to highlight here, and again, this is very, very not tricky, but there's context to this situation because we know the amount of work that the officers have done to produce a balanced budget, and I would like to recognise that as above and beyond. But part of that, of course, is because of the flip-flopping as ever yet another issue that the government are flip-flopping on because they couldn't make their mind up how much the settlement was going to be. We got a figure at the end of December as provisional. That was then reduced by the highest amount in the country and, you know, unprecedented. Suddenly last weekend we get it back. So I think that those who have managed to balance that because they found the money in that 185 have done well. But this is exactly why it comes back to why we need to rebuild reserves. And we've got some projects that aren't going to make huge differences. Where some of our asset disposals are for tiny little assets that, you know, it'll probably cost as much to get rid of them as the yield on it. We need to be looking at something meaningful to if we're going to address those issues fast. There's a lot of money being put into, I mean, I'm glad to hear about the lift because the East Cliff lift in Ramsgate is a topic that's very dear to us all. And I don't know if the answer's here tonight, but the good news is that because under the previous Conservative administration, we got 100,000 in compensation from Southern Water for one of their spills. 50,000 of that was absolutely ring-fenced by the former leader of the council for the Ramsgate lift. So I'm hoping that's in addition to the 120, or there's 50 grand that you might well be able to find to ease it. I can see the leader shaking his head. He's probably not allowed to speak at this point.
Just doesn't want to.
Doesn't want to, probably. No. I know, but the non-verbals were good, weren't they? Anyhow, we'll come back to that on another occasion because it is a very real question. However, you know, we've got the Marina car park on the asset disposal list. It's underperforming, apparently. Well, it's probably because nobody knows it's there. It's horrendously signposted. There's not, you know, but it could be used as a very effective asset if it was actually run properly. So there's lots of opportunities to increase yield and balance the budget without it all having to be doom and gloom. However, again, and I'm going to take us back to this very simple principle that we need to rebuild the reserves, and that's to protect the public as well, for those that think, oh, it's not that we don't want the nice facilities, you know, and there will be ways of delivering it. But this budget isn't necessarily the best way to do that. So on that basis, we won't be supporting it, but we will be supporting all attempts to focus on those reserves. And I'd like to see a focus perhaps on the much vaunted traffic light monitoring system on our projects that we don't seem to implement very well, but we made a lot of fuss about 2 years ago. We need to know when to say, oop, and put a stop on things quicker. And that will make a difference. Thank you.
Councillor Roger.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank the officers for their hard work on balancing this budget, but I raised my concerns at the last Cabinet meeting and I feel it important to raise it tonight. In 2019, a survey identified essential repairs costing £2.8 million to the council offices. An updated report in 2024 estimated a cost of £3.8 million. In 7 years, these repairs haven't been done and the costs have escalated. As already stated in this report, the future of Cecil Street is uncertain. Our current finances are under considerable strain, so surely it would be wiser to defer the refurbishment of the ground floor offices until after the decision in June, when we know the outcome of the local government reorganisation and how it will affect Thanet District Council. Will this be an unnecessary expense should TDC cease to exist, and are we hoping that the Unitary Council will foot the bill? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wing.
I mean, we keep going back to historical context, and you keep saying the surplus was bigger when you were in power. I think it's really important that when you make comparisons, you also make the comparisons of where we were in terms of our housing stock and our housing problem. If we really want to go back further, I think for every 8 council houses that have been sold since Mrs. Thatcher introduced that and then the Labour government continued, only one's been replaced. I think we need to, I'm not worried about supporting this budget, because if I was sat here and we were the only council that was stretched financially and we stuck out like a sore thumb, then I'd be really worried. But I'm not worried, because there are councils up and down the country who are in exactly the same situation as us. And the elephant in the room is a lack of funding from central government, which has been going on for years and years and years. I absolutely would like to thank the housing team and Councillor Whitehead for what she's done, because I've seen the impact on my residents at an individual level. You know, I can support this. I guess what I'm saying is, you had a surplus that was bigger than the surplus that we have now. But who's to say that surplus would be any worse than it is now if there hadn't have been a housing intervention? And that's what we've seen, a housing intervention that will reduce costs going forward. You know, it's not a sticking plaster that we've slapped over something. There's an actual cure for this disease we've got, which was a lack of housing and having to dump people out, and an increase in homelessness. There's an intervention, and that's demonstrated every time the housing team come to overview and scrutiny. You know, we can clearly see what their outcomes, where they're trying to get to, and how they're trying to get there. And so, you know, I thank the housing team. Nobody's mentioned the real story here, which is the story of the families that are dumped in Ashford or Dover and kids can't get to school. Why don't we cost that in? Why haven't we got a financial cost of that element of being out of area? Because the human cost of not spending this money to increase our own housing stock, which Mrs. Thatcher's got us into in the first place, is the one we really should be focusing on. So I don't have a problem with supporting this budget, and until somebody shows me the comparison of what your surplus would have been like without the interventions, then I'm quite happy to support this.
Councillor Scobie.
I think we need to get a few things straight. There is a reason why the reserves were high. It's because we had years of hung council, so it was very difficult to get budgets through, and there was COVID. And it's interesting because the Governance and Audit Committee had training on the reserves, and a lot of the people talking about the reserves, none of you were there. So you wouldn't know that there's a logical reason why the reserves were artificially high at that point. So people standing up and saying, in our day, the reserves were this high. Yeah, because we had a number of grants coming from central government to deal with COVID, and there was political chaos, which meant, with no control for several years, which meant that there wasn't the ability to spend money. And I also think that one of the realities of that is that there was not investment in assets, and that is something that we have had to pick up as an administration and spend additional money and deal with some of the losses. And the number one thing of that is absolutely with the port, where if you look at some of the costs we've had this current year and last year, directly related to underinvestment over years, for this period where people are standing up and saying how great it was we had all this money in the bank. Well, maybe you should have spent some of that actually on some of the assets, and we would have more money now because we wouldn't have had to spend it in an emergency fashion on crumbling assets. I also think that there was an interesting, I should probably, because I came late to this meeting, welcome Councillor Rattigan to his new position. Nice to see another finance spokesman for a group jumping ship a year before an election for political reasons. I will also say, Councillor Rattigan, your call for a cross-party group to look at finance, it exists. It's called the Governance and Audit Committee. You might want to come along sometime and learn about the finances of council, because you certainly haven't been there in the last 3 years. And to members opposite saying we must get more money into the reserves and we're overspending, I have sat on scrutiny with a number of you over the last couple of years, and every single spending decision, every plan that the council has brought forward, you've supported. And none of you have come forward with any sort of cuts in the budget of where you would put money into the reserves, and that's because you support it. And this is where politics sometimes gets ridiculous, because you're able to sit there and say, oh, we're not going to vote for the budget because we think too much money is being spent, but you won't say where any of the money is going to be cut from, and you support everything we're doing. Extra hours for extra opening hours for the toilets, which is a large area of overspend. You support that. You have done consistently. Investment into temporary accommodation. You've supported that every single time it's come to overview and scrutiny. But now you sit at the budget of the annual year and say, oh no, we don't want to spend that money. This is a balanced budget. Over the last sort of 5 months, we've gone from a position where we weren't sure where the money was going to come from to put into essential services. And now we've done that. Money is going into homelessness, money's going in to cover risks around cybersecurity, risks around the housing benefit money that we're not getting, and money has gone into supporting frontline services in a way that means that we can actually do what we say we do. We have been lucky, but I have to say, we've had a couple of years where we've been incredibly unlucky, and we've seriously made some of our own luck on this. And I really think we should all support this budget because it's the best we've got. Thank you.
Councillor Faruqi.
I'd just like to commend the officers. This is a sensible, pragmatic, practical budget. It's absolutely fit for purpose. And I'd also like to commend the officers for their candour in actually looking at what we can't achieve and what we do need to keep our eyes on. This is why it's actually such a good budget, why we should support it. It's clear-sighted and we know what we need to do. I do have some concern, though, about the duty of candour in this chamber for those who are pushing the narrative, and the very simplified narrative, that building reserves is good and spending is bad. Because as a council, our job is actually to make sure that we are providing the services for our most vulnerable residents. And I think as a council and as a community, we should judge ourselves on how we look after the most vulnerable. And that's what we are doing. We weren't spending for fun. We're spending to actually make sure that essential services are provided and that we are actually looking after those who needed it. And that is why we've kept such a close eye on this budget. So I just wanted to make that point. And I think this is a budget we should support. It is the best we've got, and we are doing what we need to do. And I think the narrative of building up reserves, I think you have to actually think and be kind of quite candid with our residents. What are you building them up for? What are we actually trying to achieve within this council? That was all. Thank you.
Councillor Pugh.
It's like being followed, isn't it? Sorry, Charles, not by you. I didn't mean that. I wasn't going to speak on this because I think everyone has spoke so well, whether they agree or not on the budget. But firstly, I'd like to say that this has probably been the most vile debate we have had, or council meeting we have had, for quite some time. And actually, I'm quite embarrassed by it, if I'm entirely honest. I know I'm Chair, please indulge me. I will speak on the budget. I think we all need to treat each other with a bit of respect, irrespective of what party you're from or not. This is a budget, and, we've got more people in the public gallery than normally attend or even watch the recording online. And if this is how we're going to behave, I don't think we should be surprised that people don't show up, they don't pay attention, and they don't really listen to us. So I think that's really important. When we're talking about the budget, and I understand what Councillor Faruqi said, I understand what Councillor Scobie and others have said, as well as Councillor Wing, but it is really important that we have healthy reserves. It's really important for our financial stability. There is no certainty that this council will cease to exist in a year or 2 years' time. We don't know when devolution is coming. It is irresponsible for us to run down our reserves so close to the line When we say, oh, it's reserves, the danger number is £6 million. Now that may sound like a huge number. For an organisation of our size, it isn't. It simply isn't. Now, I could have come forward with many amendments, as the Greens have done for this budget, about what I think should happen. And of course, I concede that maybe I perhaps should have. I understand that there are certain pressures, particularly with temporary accommodation and with what this administration is trying to do. It is within the gift of this Labour administration to decide their priorities. They have the majority, and if needed, they push them through. That's the way it works. That's why we've had local elections. That's democracy. But what I am absolutely staggered by is that, and I'm not going to call anyone out, because I'm not going to then do what I've just criticised other people for doing, but to criticise whether it be anyone responsible for finance as a cabinet member or anything, and then talk about concerns about budget monitoring, I think it's really, really disingenuous, because there have been people in this chamber, particularly in the ruling administration, that have consistently voted for budgets over the last 2 or 3 years when they've been the controlling party, and they've stood by that. We're concerned about the fall in reserves. To now say that, or actually, it was so-and-so's fault and they were the relevant cabinet member, and absolve anyone else in the ruling party of any responsibility, I think it's just incredibly short-sighted. And I'm trying to be polite in the way that I'm trying to speak. So I won't be supporting this budget. As I said, it's in the gift of the Labour administration to put forward this budget and deliver on it, and they're going to have to be held accountable if it then goes wrong. But at the same time, we are skirting so close to the line, and we don't know when we could form up into a East Kent unitary or anything. And why is it to say that just because we're on the distant far end of Kent, and because Canterbury and Dover may not have any choice but to form a unitary with us, that we should run down reserves to a perilous position where we then just kind of join them and go, oh, hi, here we are. So therefore I won't be voting for it. Thank you.
Councillor Yates.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to address finances. It's been raised at me tonight about my skills as Cabinet Member for Finance. So let me be honest with all of you tonight, and I haven't prepared this speech. One of the biggest things that we can do, and this is matched up by our Section 151 officer, is get a report published about the future of Ramsgate Port. When I was Cabinet Member for Finance, I wanted a report and continuously asked officers for a report listing all the options, including selling Ramsgate Port. Now, why is this important? Because that port, again and again and again, every year, there's unbudgeted and unplanned requests on our finances. Every year, £500,000. Unbudgeted, unplanned. That is one of the biggest drivers for the reduction in our finances, reduction in our reserves. So let me be honest with you tonight. If you want to discuss finances, let's see the report that I repeatedly asked for and has never materialised about the future of Ramsgate Port, and let's see all the options about that tonight. So that's all I had to say, but thank you for listening. I'll be supporting the budget. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Everett, would you like to sum up?
Oh, I would, Chair. Thank you. Yes. Some interesting comments. I'll start with Councillor Rattigan. As has already been alluded to by Councillor Scobie, he and Councillor Cupp offered absolutely nothing by way of proposals which reduce the council's spending. And clearly, if you're going to make a significant difference, you need to make a significant proposal. But they didn't have one. Councillor Rattigan's only proposal, as far as I understood it, was to form a committee. Well, as I understand it, he's not a member of a formal group, so he couldn't sit on that committee. And neither could any of his colleagues. Perhaps they'll do something about that. I don't know. Very strange to want to form a committee that you can't serve on. We heard about temporary accommodation and the work that's going on there. I just want to say it takes a long while for the savings to feed through into the budget. And one of the problems we've had is that the Conservative administration, which I remind them was only in office from 21 to 23 and not for the full period of the previous council, did sod all. You know, they didn't make a big difference. And when we came in and announced that we wanted to acquire 400 houses, buying Section 106 properties, as well as building on council land, the Conservative administration said, we didn't know we could do that. Well, perhaps they should have asked. That is what is helping to drive down our temporary accommodation numbers. In terms of the reserves, I just point out, as I just said, it was a Labour budget that was introduced here in 2020 and 2021. So if you want to make claims about what happened in those years, you ought to remember that a minority Labour administration with fewer councillors, and at times far fewer councillors than the Conservatives had, was charged with introducing the budget and getting it through this council. And it did. The Conservatives were too busy arguing about who should be the leader and how to placate the former Councillor Piper, which they eventually did. Councillor Davis has referred to the Marina car park as if that's some kind of a solution to the council's financial issues. The Marina car park is up for disposal. It's up. We're putting forward market interest so we can consider disposal. We will look at anything that comes forward, but I think the idea that that car park on the seafront of Ramsgate is a miracle solution to this council's financial problem is a bit far-fetched. My recollection of the last administration is that whatever happened to the reserves, they failed to do things which they could easily have done. They failed to repair the lifts in the Leopold Street car park in Ramsgate, despite the fact we left them the money in the budget in 2021 when they took over. They closed the Winter Gardens. Which was actually a disastrous decision and has got legacy costs now and is making it more expensive to reopen. It was the wrong decision. It's the wrong decision. We all make mistakes and you made that mistake, so why not own up to it? This budget has been carefully put together. There's been a lot of work gone into it from officers and officers across the council, not just the finance officers. I'm proud to present it to the council and I urge the council to support it tonight.
Thank you. So we go to the vote. Once again, it's recorded. So over to the monitoring officer.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Steve Albon.
Believe it or not, 4.
Councillor Roshan Ara. 4. Councillor Tricia Austin. 4. Councillor Marlon Barlow. Councillor Jill Bayford.
Against.
Councillor Martin Boyd.
4.
Councillor Joanne Bright.
4.
Councillor Christian Bright. 4. Councillor Leo Britcher.
4.
Councillor Helen Crittenden. 4. Councillor Alan Curry. 4. Councillor John Davis.
Against.
Councillor Emma Dawson. Councillor John Dennis. Councillor David Donaldson.
4.
Councillor Jim Driver.
4.
Councillor Ruth Duckworth.
4.
Councillor John Edwards.
4.
Councillor Peter Evans.
Against.
Councillor Rick Everett.
4.
Councillor Rupa Faruqi.
4.
Councillor Phil Fellows.
Against.
Councillor Mike Garner.
4.
Councillor David Green.
4.
Councillor Karina Huxley.
4.
Councillor Heather Keane.
4.
Councillor George Cupp.
Against.
Councillor Pat Mackinson.
4.
Councillor Barry Manners.
Against.
Councillor Jenny Matterface. 4. Councillor Pat Moore.
4.
Councillor Paul Moore.
Against.
Councillor John Nichols.
Against.
Councillor Anne-Marie Nixie.
4.
Councillor Tony Ovenden.
4.
Councillor Darren Oxborough.
Against.
Councillor Deborah Owen Hughes.
4.
Councillor Jack Packman's not here, is he? Councillor Katie Pope's not here. Councillor Kevin Pressland.
4.
Councillor Reese Pugh.
Against.
Councillor Mark Rattigan.
Against.
Councillor Brenda Rogers. Councillor Harry Scobie.
4.
Councillor Will Scobie.
4.
Councillor Matthew Scott.
Against.
Councillor Abby Smith.
4.
Councillor Helen Whitehead.
4.
Councillor Becky Wing.
4. Sorry.
Councillor Linda Wright.
Against.
Councillor Rob Yates.
4.
Thank you, councillors. Carried.
Thank you, councillors. That is agreed. Thank you. Would someone like to tell Councillor Pope that she can come back into the room? She has gone home. Okay, here we go. Next item. You'll be pleased to know we're almost quarter of the way in. That's good, isn't it? Okay, here we go. This is for the ladies and gentlemen at the back. Questions from the press.
No, it's the council tax. It's the council tax.
Where's that?
Here.
Sorry, one moment. I'm so sorry, members, people at the back. I've just teased you and you're not on yet. I'm so sorry. Here we go. It won't be long, I promise. So I would advise that in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 17.6, I will call for a recorded vote on the motion or any amendments and substantive motions. Councillor Everett, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Following the decision to approve the budget, we now come to the formal council tax resolution for 26-27. While the budget defines our spending, this resolution provides the legal authority to collect the income required to fund those services. It is a statutory necessity that consolidates our own requirements with those of our other major preceptors, Kent County Council, the Kent Police and Crime Commissioner, and the Kent and Medway Fire and Rescue Service, as well as our town and parish councils. The resolution is based on the 2.99% increase in the Thanet District Council element of the tax. For a Band D property, this represents an annual increase of £8.10 or approximately 15 pence a week. And I should say that I don't think the average property in Thanet is Band D. I think it's less than that, but Band D is the national standard. So you may make a saving on that 15p. I will say to Council there's no room to vary this proposal. Our financial resilience is at a critical level. As the Section 151 officer has stated in his Section 25 report, our reserves are projected to fall to the minimum floor of 6 million by the end of March. The tax increase is vital to help us manage the overspend we're seeing in the current year, driven largely by the unprecedented demand for homelessness services. Members will note from Table 6 that Thanet's share of the total bill, which they receive through the door, remains small at 11.2%. The rest of it is decided elsewhere. Finally, this resolution confirms our commitment to bring local housing back into use through council tax premiums, a 100% premium on second homes, and increasing premiums for long-term empty properties, which can reach 300% if left vacant over 10 years, for over 10 years. These measures are not just about revenue, they are a clear policy signal that we prioritise homes for local people. This resolution is the final essential step in securing a legal and balanced financial framework for the year ahead. I move the recommendations in the report.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Keane, thank you. Okay, we may debate. Anybody got anything to say? Anyone? Are we going straight to the vote? Last chance. We go straight to the vote. This is another recorded vote, so over to you, Monitoring Officer.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Steve Alban. Councillor Roshan Ara. Councillor Tricia Austin. Councillor Marlon Barlow. Councillor Jill Bayford. Councillor Martin Boyd. Councillor Joanne Bright. I'm still not here. Councillor Christian Bright.
I'm still here. 4.
Councillor Leo Britcher.
4.
Councillor Helen Crittenden. 4. Councillor Alan Curry. 4. Councillor John Davis.
Abstain.
Councillor Emma Dawson. Councillor John Dennis. Councillor David Donaldson.
4.
Councillor Jim Driver.
4.
Councillor Ruth Duckworth.
4.
Councillor John Edwards.
4.
Councillor Peter Evans.
Abstain.
Councillor Rick Everett.
4.
Councillor Rupa Faruqi.
4.
Councillor Phil Fellows.
Abstain.
Councillor Mike Garner.
4.
Councillor David Green.
4.
Councillor Karina Huxley.
4.
Councillor Heather Keane.
4.
Councillor George Cupp.
Abstain.
Councillor Pat Mackinson.
4.
Councillor Barry Manners.
Abstain.
Councillor Jenny Matterface. 4. Councillor Pat Moore.
4.
Councillor Paul Moore.
Abstain.
Councillor John Nichols. Councillor Anne-Marie Nixie.
For.
Councillor Tony Overton. Councillor Darren Oxborough. Councillor Deborah Owen Hughes. Councillor Katie Pope. Councillor Kevin Pressland. Councillor Reese Pugh. Councillor Mark Rattigan. It's not there. Councillor Brenda Rogers. Councillor George Rusecki. Oh, he's not here, sorry. Councillor Harry Scobie. Councillor Will Scobie. Councillor Matthew Scott. Councillor Abby Smith. Councillor Helen Whitehead. Councillor Becky Wing. Councillor Linda Wright. Councillor Rob Yates. Thank you, councillors. Agreed. Yeah.
Thank you. That is agreed. Thank you. Okay, next item, Council Tax Resolution 2026-27.
Just done that.
We've just done that. Treasury Management. I'm sorry. Keep an eye on me. Here we go. Treasury Management Strategy Statement, Minimum Revenue Provision Policy Statement, and Annual Investment Strategy for 2020. It's these teeth. I'm breaking them in for a horse, I know. I'm sorry. I'm not going back to the beginning. Strategy for 2026-2027. If you got that, that's what we're on now. Councillor Everett, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. This report presents the Treasury Management Strategy Statement for 2026-27. This is a technical but critical document that governs how we manage the Council's cash flows, borrowing and investments. The strategy before you reflects a prudent approach. While interest rates are forecast to fall gradually, they remain elevated. Consequently, our strategy remains one of being under-borrowed, utilising our cash balances where possible to delay taking on external debt. The Council's borrowing requirement is forecast to rise to 99 million over the next 3 years. This anticipated increase is driven by the capital investment programme, which includes a dedicated £21 million for purchasing properties for temporary accommodation. Crucially, this is not commercial borrowing for financial return, it is borrowing to generate savings. By purchasing our own assets, we will significantly reduce our dependency on costly, nightly paid private accommodation. This in turn will mitigate the severe revenue overspends that currently jeopardise our financial stability. This strategy ensures we comply with the SIPFA Prudential Code while directly addressing our most significant financial risk. I move the recommendations.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Alban. Okay, item might be debated. Anybody? Or do we go to the vote? 1, 2, 3. Let's go to the vote. Ordinarily. We can have a show of hands, would you believe? You're welcome. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. Those against, please. Those abstentions. That's agreed. Well done, everybody. Thank you. Here we are. Questions from the press and public? We're there. We're there. There have been 4 questions received from the press and public in accordance with Council Rule Procedure number 13. The time allowed for consideration of questions from the press and public shall not exceed 30 minutes. Please be as concise as you possibly can. A question from a member of the public regarding housing and London boroughs. I'm pleased to welcome Miss McCourt. Would you please make your way to the microphone? Hello. Yes, just there. Thank you. No, have a seat. Have a seat.
Okay.
Now, Miss McCourt, if you'd like to read your question,
yes,
please.
please. Thank you. So, over predicted housing targets and the risks of homes built here being passed on to London boroughs looking to house their residents has been a serious concern for local groups and politicians in Thanet. Canterbury City Council bore the consequences of this occurring several years ago. Laws have been put in place to stop this practice, we have been told. Apparently 2 years ago, when our group met with council officers and cabinet members, we raised these concerns. A Lewisham council worker had advised me that a loophole had been found by officers, but officers stated that that was a myth. It has not gone unnoticed, however, that 800 homes in Hayne Road have recently been sold, apparently in bulk. This sale suggests our fears were not unfounded. My question is, how many of these homes in Hayne Road have been let to London councils or their agents, and what financial costs will we face in the future?
Thank you. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you for your question, Mrs. McCall. To answer your question as accurately as possible, it's not. Oh, okay. To answer your question as accurately as possible, clarification around the following part of your question would have been very useful. It has not gone unnoticed that 800 homes in Hayne Road have recently been sold, apparently in bulk. Without an identified source for this information, which is presented as fact, or the name of the site that this statement refers to, as there are several sites and multiple providers along the Hayne Road, I am effectively working backwards in order to answer your question, but I will do so. Along and adjacent to Hayne Road, there are 4 sites with a total potential development number of 2,300. The Manston Green site comprises 785 of these homes, with an affordable housing split of 70-30. We have full nomination rights for the Section 106 properties on this site, which removes 235 of these homes from the potential of external purchase, leaving us with 550 properties. Only 461 of these homes are currently in construction. The St Stephen's and Gilchrist site comprises 115 units, all built, with 10% affordable housing and 10 units already purchased by us. That leaves 105 remaining properties. The Eurokent Spitfire Road development comprises 500 homes with 30% affordable housing and a 50-50 split between affordable rent and first purchase homes. We also have a nominations agreement for this site in relation to the affordable rent properties, leaving 425 units outside council provision. The Westwood Village site comprises 900 homes with 30% affordable housing and a 50-50 split between affordable rent and shared ownership. We have nomination rights for all of these, which leaves 630 homes on the private market. So in conclusion, there are 2,300 dwellings across all sites on the Hayne Road, none of which are 800 property site in terms of private availability, and 850 of those homes are affordable housing. This brings the number of available homes in the private sector across all of the sites down to 1,450. Of those 1,450, 242 have been directly purchased by us to be used as council housing, leaving 1,208 on the private market. This means that more than 52% of the homes along and adjacent to the Hayne Road are already reserved for Thanet residents. Without knowing sales figures, which the council would not know as we are not the developers for these sites, this would leave 1,208 homes still potentially available on the private market across all sites, some of which have not been built yet. As we have discussed previously, properties on the private market can be bought by anyone, much as individuals can sell their home at any time without council intervention or direct monitoring. However, our current acquisitions programme would not be possible if the most cost-effective way of buying property was being taken up by other areas and providers, as currently we purchase significant numbers of Section 106 units due to housing associations and registered providers not taking them on. This leaves us with the premise of providers deliberately not purchasing the most cost-effective option. And although this is possible, it isn't logical unless other factors are at play. And I have explored that premise, but I'm afraid that's a lengthy discussion and I'll have to refer you to the larger piece of work I've done on this area. To conclude, we never had and don't currently have a site of 800 properties available for bulk private purchase on the Hayne Road. We have multiple providers with different lower numbers of available properties for private sale once the 52% of the homes going solely to Thanet residents are removed. If other councils move individuals into our area, they are also required to notify us. I can confirm that we have had no contact relating to 900 individuals from another council moving into our area, and if that does happen, we legally have to be notified by the council involved. I can't give a direct answer to whether homes on the Hayne Road have been purchased by third-party providers, or give the answer to the question how many of these have been let to London boroughs. But I can give you an answer to the question how many households have been placed by London boroughs in Thanet in the last decade, and that answer is 44, with 5 boroughs yet to give a full response. I've published a lengthy piece relating to this on my website, Telling for Thanet page, along with further discussions around population movement related to housing associations and registered providers, and a letter to central government requesting that housing associations and registered providers delivering social and affordable housing are subject to FOI just as councils are, and that the duty to notify is extended to not only cover individual placements, but also the purchase of property in the area. These are both available on social media and my website. This is a complex area with multiple moving parts, but I have made and am making active efforts to not only map housing usage within our area effectively in order to work towards reducing divisive narratives, but also proposing measures that would increase knowledge and understanding. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question is from a member of the public regarding Hartsdown School. Now, the questioner is not present at the meeting, I don't believe. Therefore, a written response to the question will be provided. So on to the next question, a question from a member of the public regarding Walpole Tidal Pool. I'm pleased to welcome Barbara Palmer. Are you here, Barbara Palmer? Hello. Come and have a seat. It's not exactly mastermind
I've
chair.
had quite a long seat, but never mind.
Okay, Barbara Palmer, would you like to word your question, please?
Yes, good evening. We're sure Council shares the concerns of users of Walpole Tidal Pool, which has been out of action since early January. We have seen that some repairs have been carried out to the surface of the walls, but what is the timetable for replacing the sluices and reopening the pool? Following the various repairs in 2023, a major survey was planned in 2024, and what were the findings? Further significant deterioration has occurred subsequently, including extensive leaks. The importance of maintaining the tidal pool cannot be underestimated, also related to the success of extensive plans for the cafe, etc. What detailed formal programme is now in place to address all repairs, including the promenade, etc., effective planned maintenance, and who is responsible for overseeing this work? This is vital to the integrity of the pool and associated facilities, so access is ensured for the long term. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Alban, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ms Palmer. The Walpole Tidal Pool is very important to the Council, as it's important to you. The 3 sluice gates are used to drain the pool. The existing sluice gates, which is not easy to say, were replaced in 1997. Replacing the previous gates installed in the late 1960s. We are replacing them again as they have recently started to fail. The replacement gates have been manufactured and delivered to the site this week. Unfortunately, tides this week are not favourable. Therefore, work to replace the sluice gates will not start until next week, beginning on the 1st of March. Replacing the gates is a complex process, severely limited by the tide. While we are making every effort to reopen the pool quickly, our priority is ensuring the work is undertaken safely and that the solution will succeed. In addition, the Council is fully refurbishing the pool to repair defects identified in a 2024 survey. This work will run concurrently with the £1 million DEFRA-funded coastal Protection Scheme scheduled for 2026. A timeline for the refurbishment will be shared with the public following completion of the tender process and contract award. We understand that people wish to use the pool and that its current out of service status is frustrating. However, we cannot complete these improvements while the pool remains in service. Further downtime is expected during the refurbishment. Coast and Engineering Services is responsible for the tidal pool and inspects the whole Thanet coastline, including all tidal pools. The Walpole pool is drained at least once every year for maintenance. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from a member of the public regarding the Compton Nottingham Cinema organ. Mr. Nibb, where are you? Hello, would you like to come over? I've got one, if you haven't got yours.
While I thank Councillor Whitehead for supporting the campaign for the Scenic Railway, I've been fobbed up on several occasions concerning the Grade 2 listed Compton Nottingham cinema organ in the cinema, which lies in a state of disrepair. I have answers to an FRI that I can provide that would appall any member here. I've asked a question in this chamber that was not answered properly. Is our cinema organ going to continue being ignored and pushed out the back door to the scrapyard? Out of sight, out of mind. Another heritage asset gone, like the balcony outside the Kent Hotel. I'd appreciate an answer that is not a pro forma from the unelected officers.
Thank you. Councillor Whitehead, over to you.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Nibb. As evidenced by my previous answer, officers generally struggle to get me to stop writing rather than having to answer for me, and that won't change, although it's important to note here that the point of a council functioning the way that it does is to have political leadership that determines priorities and strategies, and employed experts who know their field exceptionally well and can provide insight into their area of work with councillors. And it's important to note that a well-functioning council relies on both elected members and officers. To answer your question, we have not received any application for listed building consent to remove the organ from Dreamland, and as I have not had sight of the aforementioned FOI, I can't address the contents of that, but I'm very happy to have sight of it so that I can understand more. We have logged this question as a planning enforcement complaint about the condition of the organ. We will be in contact with Dreamland about the condition and intention for the listed organ, and will make a site visit. We are very unusual as an area in terms of the number of listed and heritage assets that we have, considering our size as a council. But as you mentioned, I am very active in relation to the Scenic Railway and trying to secure futures and funding for our heritage assets, and that won't change. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, one question has been received from councillors in accordance with Council Procedure Rule number 14. A question from Councillor Wing regarding the tennis courts. Councillor Wing.
Sorry people as well, I know we all want to get home. It's for Councillor Duckworth. With spring and summer fast approaching, residents, visitors and tennis clubs are gearing up for another season of playing and coaching tennis. Indeed, the courts local to me have been in operation for many weeks with opportunities especially for young people and children to play and access coaching. It was also great to see these courts undergo a deep clean to keep the playing surface well maintained, safe and in excellent condition. Please could you confirm when we will see the other courts in Thanet that benefited from the same LTA grant to refurbish them will be managed in a manner that will provide similar high quality recreational, leisure and coaching benefits? Thank you.
Councillor Duckworth.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for your question, Councillor Wing.
I share your commitment to ensuring that residents have access to high quality, well managed tennis facilities. Regarding the specific courts mentioned, I can confirm that Council is currently addressing the management arrangement for these sites. We are currently engaged in a formal legal process to resolve these arrangements to ensure they meet the high standards seen everywhere in the district. Because this is a live legal matter, I'm unable to provide a specific timeframe or go into further detail at this stage. However, I can reassure the public that our priority is maintaining access. We're working closely with the LTA to ensure the long-term future of these courts for recreational use.
Councillor Wing, do you have a supplementary question?
I'll make it quite brief. Would Councillor Duckworth join me on a tour of the tennis courts so that we can look at the condition of them? I did that back in October and some of them are in a shocking state.
Councillor Duckworth.
Thank you, Chair. I'd love to go on a tour of the council courts with you.
Thank you. Item 14, notice of motion. One notice of motion has been received in accordance with Council Procedure Rule number 3. The time allowed for consideration of motion shall not exceed 60 minutes. Would councillors please be as concise as possible? Here's the notice of motion regarding the Scenic Railway at Dreamland. Councillor Everett.
Thank you, Chair. And I think in other circumstances, councillors would probably rather have not had a motion to debate this evening, but in view of the importance of the Scenic Railway, it's appropriate that we do have one and we should take the time to consider it carefully. The motion reads, Council notes with consternation the announcement in January by the owners of Dreamland Margate to retire the Grade 2 listed Scenic Railway, which is both a scenic attraction of the theme park and a key symbol of identity for the town. The Scenic Railway is the only structure of its kind in the country and of international importance in terms of its construction and seaside heritage. We recognise the need to give absolute priority to the health and safety of visitors and staff, and that Sands Heritage and Live Nation, the owners of Dreamland, have the legal right to make this decision. Nevertheless, in view of the substantial investment of public money by this council and others in safeguarding Dreamland's future, as well as the significant community involvement, we believe this is a matter of wide public interest and reputational risk to Margate as well as Dreamland. Council endorses the request by its Deputy Leader and Margate Central Councillor Helen Whitehead to ask Lisa Nandy MP, Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport, to review the requirements of listed building status, to ensure that structures listed due to the nature of their function and the importance of their utility are protected in terms of operation as well as in the maintenance of the structure. We call upon the management of Dreamland and Live Nation to engage openly and transparently with the Council and the public about the full technical background to its decision, what alternatives were considered and why they were rejected. Further, we request that the owners commit to working with this Council and others to consider all potential opportunities to return the Scenic Railway to regular operation for the benefit of both their own reputation and that of Margate as a whole. Now, I'll speak a little bit to that. Councillors will be aware there have been a number of emails circulated suggesting ways of strengthening the wording of this motion. And to be clear, I don't have a closed mind on this. My purpose was to give the Council an opportunity to speak up. And it shouldn't be about politics, but I will say that we should not encourage the idea that we have more powers or authority than we really do. Mention has been made of the Thanet local plan and the National Planning Policy Framework, but both of these are there to underpin decision making over planning applications. Officers and I have been clear, including in person with Dreamland, that any change of use would require an application, and at that point the Council would require clear evidence of justification. Without it, consent could not be granted. But currently there is no change of use and no planning or listed building application, and we have no basis to require one. The Scenic Railway is unique in roller coaster terms, but not in planning principle. That's the point of Councillor Whitehead's intervention, but just as the owners of a listed church are not required to conduct religious services, the operation of a structure, however central to its identity, is not currently protected, even if its inactivity undermines the way it's seen by the public. The grant agreement that this council had with the National Heritage Lottery Fund may have had a role here, but it was superseded by a new one between the lottery and Sands Heritage when the site was transferred in 2020. We therefore need to understand the lottery's position and also that of Historic England, and the council has already written to both. There's no reason to suppose that they won't tell us what their position is, and in fact I can tell you that we have tonight received a letter from Historic England which basically supports Dreamland's statement and says that they are focused on new uses for the Scenic Railway. However, on behalf of all the generations who have enjoyed the Scenic Railway, we need to ask again those who have taken this decision to be open about the full background, even if it leads to them being challenged. There may be no obligation in law, but there is an issue of public trust that will damage Dreamland's reputation down the years unless it is addressed. And the reputation of Dreamland matters. The Scenic Railway is key to why some of us first came to Margate half a century ago as day trippers and holidaymakers. The town has many other attractions then and now, but it has none that has been more important or better known as a unique symbol of its identity. We can, of course, divert ourselves with the long history of how we got to this position if we choose. For political reasons, some may want to do that. But I suggest to you that Dreamland's silence is in part an invitation for us to fill the vacuum with discordant voices arguing over the distant past. And that debate will not change the current situation. Tonight, the Council has an opportunity to speak with one voice and call on Dreamland's owners to be fully transparent with the public about what the situation is now. I move the motion.
Thank you. Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Alban, thank you. Now, the controlling political group is entitled to reply. However, due to this being a motion from the controlling political group, the leader has offered the response to the leader of the opposition, and I have agreed. So, Councillor Davis, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Leader, for bringing this motion. And I believe the spirit that exists in this chamber. This is one of those issues that transcends political interest. This is about the assets of this island, the culture of this island, the people of this island, and we must all stand united as a council on this in order to represent the people. I think we need to be perhaps a little more resilient in our tone, but I do understand what you said and that we are limited in terms of our authority, as it were. But one of the things I'd like to draw your attention, if I may, is I'm disappointed by what you said about it was Historic England. Historic England, who are responsible for the listing, have listed the reasons for the designation. Part 1, and it's Grade 2 star listed, which is it's been enhanced in 2011. So forgetting its checkered history of the couple of years before that with fires and things, what's the value of a listing if you can't actually protect it? Because Grade 2 star is, other than 1, is obviously the highest standard. What it protects is the asset in its condition as listed. Now, we've heard how this much loved old wooden roller coaster's at the end of its natural life. They must think we're born yesterday. It was rebuilt in 2008 after the fire, using original materials and so on. But so somebody's not telling it how it is here, and somebody's not. They're either not getting it right and don't know the facts, or we're being misled. So I think we have to be pretty robust. But I think it's a very interesting debate, and I know that the officers are very keen, and the senior management team, to see this resolved. However, we're being told constantly, no, our hands are tied and so on. There must be a planning enforcement or some condition can be brought in here, because it's not in the condition it was listed in if it's not ready to run. We can't make them operate it, but we can make them keep it in a fit condition as was the spirit of the listing. And I think we need to perhaps go back to Historic England and would recommend that. But what I don't want to do is draw off of the passion and emotion that will be in this room. I do believe that we would want to perhaps suggest an amendment, addition, or a way to make the leader's words a little more robust, particularly with regard to the heritage aspects and the investment. Let's not forget, this thing's had £12 million collectively of public money, more than that, in fact, but it had £4 million vied by this council from the Winter Gardens it should have gone into, and look what happened there. There's about 11 million, I think it tops up to, with heritage lottery funding. You know, and what have we got for it? Apparently, a ride that doesn't work, everything else stripped out on the park. And let's remember, in the local plan, it's supposed to be 50% rides in there. Of course, no one's rushing to ride the one heritage ride because everything else has been stripped out around it as part of a very clear trajectory to control the future of that park. So, thank you for allowing me to respond, and I'd just like to confirm, because I would like to suggest an amendment, but I don't want to get into debating that and kill other people's voice. Would I come back to you on that during the debate?
Yes, you can. If we choose to debate it, you can.
Thank you, Chair, and I very much hope we do because of the importance of this matter. But thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to respond, and I do hope that we are all going to show a united front on this.
Thank you. I remind councillors that in accordance with Council Procedure 3.7, if it's not agreed to debate the motion, it will fall as only council can agree this motion. So can I have a proposer, please, to debate the motion? Thank you, Councillor Orban. And a seconder, Councillor Wright, I think I'm going to choose. Thank you very much. Do councillors agree to debate the motion? Agree. Wonderful. Okay, who wants to start? Councillor Manners.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to have to pick up my laptop here. Yeah, I welcome the motion to attempt engagement with Sands Heritage Limited and to examine all possible levers that might encourage them to alter their position on the Scenic Railway. I'm not alone, I'm sure, in my anger at the closure of this heritage attraction. And as eloquent and legally accurate as the Chief Executive's email of the 24th may be regarding our legal position on this, it was a pretty dismal read. We're to understand that the Council has no contractual power to require the Scenic Railway to operate, that planning cannot compel it to do so, and its listed status protects the structure but not the ride's ongoing operation. It appears as a council we're little more than spectators in this process. And I believe we need to examine why we are in this mess, which appears very clearly the result of how this asset was disposed of in 2021, having been agreed, I understand, earlier in 2019. A nationally significant heritage attraction restored with millions in public subsidy that could have benefited so many other overdue and worthwhile projects in Thanet was transferred without legal covenants to ensure its ongoing operation, without change of control safeguards and without operational protections. Taxpayers stumped up millions for a gold-plated restoration, yet the council now has no leverage when operation ceases, or it appears to have very little room for manoeuvre. That should concern every member of this chamber, regardless of party. I'm not seeking to apportion blame or score political points, but if we do not examine that properly, we risk repeating it. This needs to be about understanding how we arrived at a position where a strategic heritage asset, and as the leader has just stated, the reason many of us first came to Margate, how it could be lost to operation with the council having no legal remedy, and despite having had very ample opportunity to have equipped itself to do so. Moreover, in 2023, I understand the asset, the majority ownership of the operating company was transferred to a large corporate entity. That raises legitimate questions about whether the council adequately anticipated change of control scenarios with remedies to protect the public interest. I restate, if we do not examine that properly, we risk repeating it. This is especially relevant as we dispose of other significant heritage assets, not least of all the Winter Gardens. I'd like to propose an amendment to the motion or otherwise request a firm commitment from the leader that within a reasonable time frame he refers the entire history of the Dreamland disposal, the advice received, the safeguards considered and the risk assessment undertaken to overview and scrutiny, or otherwise a proposal to the an amendment to the proposal. Residents deserve transparency. We owe it to them to learn and demonstrate the fact to them. We certainly owe them stronger governance in future. And thank you. With the Chair's permission, I'm happy to read the proposed amendment, or I can just...
Yes,
would that be okay? So the Council further resolves to refer the disposal of the Dreamland site to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee for a full review, including the legal advice received at the time of disposal, the consideration or otherwise of operational covenants, keep open clauses and change of control safeguards, the assessment of long-term public interest and heritage risk, the application of the Council's best value duty in relation to the transaction, and the adequacy of governance procedures followed. The purpose of this review shall be to identify lessons learned and to recommend strengthened asset disposal procedures for future strategic assets, including but not limited to the Winter Gardens. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Manners, do you have that amendment written out
Yes.
please? To Democratic Services, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. Okay, do you have a seconder for this amendment? Thank you. Okay, 1 minute, please. Okay, we're talking about the amendment now. Councillor Scobie.
Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Do we need to have this amendment for scrutiny to be able to call this in and talk about it as an issue? I'm not entirely sure why we're conflating the two. This is a very clear statement from council around our feeling with regards to the future of the Winter Gardens. If Councillor Fellows, as Chair of Overview and Scrutiny, or we as a panel want to call this in and invite the leader to come and discuss this and bring officers in, we could do that tomorrow. I don't really understand what the amendment's doing other than sort of actually diluting the purpose. I would much rather, I think, have a unified statement saying we criticise this issue, this change that they are making, and then we can pick up that other issue with Overview and Scrutiny. I think actually at the last meeting we were planning on doing that anyway, so I'm not really sure what this amendment achieves, other than diluting the purpose of this motion.
Well, he can bring an amendment. So the amendment's here. Yeah. So we're still on the amendment. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I find myself agreeing with Councillor Scobie that it is a function of overview and scrutiny to look at anything that affects their residents or their welfare and the environment that they live in. So we have the remit, a mandate to call it in, and as I recall, and unfortunately, I don't think Councillor Manners was at the last overview and scrutiny meeting. It was as good as unanimous, and the feeling there was the same as tonight. We need to get to the bottom of this, and we'd like to have a discussion with representatives from Live Nation, as in fact we've been able to do over other issues recently. So I don't know necessarily. I mean, I'm happy for that to be incorporated, but as I said, I would like to, before we start amending and bending and shunting stuff here, there and everywhere, I personally think everybody in the room, or those that wish to speak, need to be heard before on the original base motion. And also, if we're going to play it, sort of who gets theirs in, do you want this one sent in as well, the wording for it, or could I just tell you, because it's very simple?
I would like it in writing, please, but we are dealing with this amendment because it came first.
That's exactly what I tried to avoid. So let's deal with it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Alban, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to go back to Councillor Manners, obviously, with his amendment. He's pretty much going back over stuff that's done, dusted, and what you're going to get out of that, raising everything up, I don't really know. And to be quite honest, I don't care. What I care about is we should be aiming at Dreamland. Not at us. I haven't done anything. You haven't done anything. But we need to aim it at Dreamland. This is where we should be going. This is where this debate should be going. It should be aiming at Dreamland. Not, I totally understand what you're saying, but I don't think it's relevant. I just think we need to concentrate on Dreamland. why that ride isn't working. Is it got default on it, and we could take action in relation to that, which would then mean it is workable. But I can't support the amendment, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Davis, can you switch your microphone off, please? Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. To be generous to you, Councillor Manners, you are falling into a trap here, in that what has happened is an external organisation has made a decision to close a much-loved heritage asset. They have done so because they have, and I quote, said that it is unviable simply because it will cost to keep it running.
It's on.
It's on. As I was saying, we're here because an external organisation has made the choice to shut a much-loved heritage asset. They did so by notifying us that they would be making a press release, I think 3 days after we were told. They haven't released the information that we've asked them to release. We have asked directly, and that's why we have reference in relation to Heritage England, or Historic England rather. But the fact of the matter is, the people that we have to apply pressure to at this point are Dreamland, because they have made this decision and they can choose to reverse it. The more that we look or question what our planning powers are when we know full well what they are, the more we play into the narrative that somehow this is something that can be dealt with by the council and the council can somehow change that decision directly. We can't do that, and that's why I've been as vocal as I have been, and that's why we've written to central government specifically to ask for greater planning protections for our historic buildings. And it's why it's really important that as a council we are united at this point, because we have to be very clear with Dreamland at Thanet Heritage that what has been done is not acceptable. The people of Thanet will not accept it, and it needs to be reversed. That's why we've brought this motion. It's why we fought as hard as we have, and we need the backing of the council to bring that forward so that the pressure of the council and the public can be brought to bear on, frankly, an organisation that is wholly failing our community. Thank you.
Councillor Pugh. Sorry, Charles.
Yes, sorry, Charles. I'm going to say that every time I speak. That's a hard act to follow, Councillor Whitehead. I do want to speak on the main motion later, but just on Councillor Manners' amendment, I don't think there's really anything wrong necessarily with the amendment to the motion that Councillor Manners has put forward. I think it's particularly a good idea. But what I would say, and I don't want to speed up this evening because I want to go home, Chair, but I think that it would be quite a good idea to hear from the Chair of Overunion Scrutiny and whether that is something that actually he'd be quite happy to do, and we can nip this in the bud and we can get back to debating the proper motion. Because again, it's now 9 to 10. We've still got a lot to get through. We haven't even heard from the leaders' report yet. And most importantly, what's even longer, we haven't even heard the Leader of the Opposition's response to the leaders' report. So I'd like us to move a little bit quicker, with a bit more pace, because I don't want to rush through the rest of this motion because we've then been debating this amendment. So we could perhaps hear from the Chair of Overunion Scrutiny about whether that's something he would be happy to do anyway. We can then move back to the actual motion itself. Thank you.
Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask Councillor Fellows, are you prepared to take this on as Chair?
Yeah, I'll speak to Councillor Manners direct. Yeah, please come along to my next Overview and Scrutiny meeting on March the 10th. I'll give you the time, the same as I gave the time to Councillor Whitehead and Councillor Yates when they came to Scrutiny last month to talk about Dreamland. Happy to come bring your information, whatever you want to do, and we'll look at it. We'll ask the panel if they want to take it further, and then we can get the reports put together and we can look at it at the next following meeting after that. But I think there's no need for that amendment. I think this motion is to look forward, not to look backwards. I think there's plenty of time to look backwards afterwards. I think the most important thing tonight, is that we look forward and find a way that we can hold Dreamland to account.
So I now ask Councillor Manners formally, would you like to withdraw your amendment?
I'm happy to withdraw it if as long as this isn't going to be brushed under the carpet. I totally support the leader's motion, and I want to see a constructive dialogue with Sands Heritage Limited, but I don't want to brush under the carpet. I want us to learn from the experience of this so we don't repeat the same mistake with other heritage assets. That was the point. So yes, I'd like it in overview and scrutiny, please, and I'm very grateful that it will be. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we go back to the original motion. These are the people I have left to speak on it as at the moment. Councillors Rattigan and Fellows. So no, you're okay? Councillor Fellows, you've said your bit? You got more to say? Come on then. On the main motion, yeah.
Firstly, I'm going to say I support the motion, obviously. Although, is this motion absolutely necessary? I know we need the debate, but you brought a motion to yourself and your own cabinet. I'm not sure if I would think that the cabinet would be working hard to do whatever they can, not just in their power but in themselves, to somehow reverse the decision that Dreamland have made without the need for a motion. But it's disappointing that is all I'm hearing so far is nothing we can do. And if there's nothing we can do, then what's the point of the motion? So here we go. But we're hearing that Dreamland are not going to engage with us. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? I mean, if I looked out that window over there, I could see Dreamland's offices. Maybe one of us needs to go down there and knock on their door and ask them what they're going to do. I'm happy to do that. If none of you want to go and do it, I'm happy to go down there. On your way out, Bill. Happy to do it. Happy to do it. I know they've not acknowledged my invite to come to scrutiny, and I'm not going to give up on that one. I was told I'd never get fresh water into the chamber. Well, we all saw what happened when we did. I've looked through many documents recently regarding Dreamland, and everything I've read had a continuing theme that Dreamland was a key to the regeneration of Margate. Are we going to allow it to morph into just a music venue and not a theme park attraction? And will we still believe it's a key asset in the same way? In February 23, we granted additional licences for music events. The quote from park bosses at the time was that those licences were needed for the ongoing financial viability of Dreamland. Now, that was a direct quote. So we gave them the ability to create more millions in revenue, and now they repay us by the closure of the Scenic Railway. On another note, in an email from the Chief Executive, it was stated that the senior officers had met with Dreamland in July 25, where it was said the Scenic Railway could possibly cease operation. Why is it you were only briefed on January the 24th this year? Lastly, I want to refer to two documents. Firstly is the adopted local plan. Now, I keep being told it means nothing, but it is our Bible. It's the thing that thrown Birchington under the bus with 1,600 houses. We keep hearing that from the Cabinet Member for Housing. It states clearly, in regarding to Dreamland, that any reduction in its attractiveness or tourist potential will be resisted, including the loss of the Scenic Railway. Any reasonable person reading that would understand that to me a ride, not just a wooden structure. And also I have a letter here, and you spoke about the Heritage Lottery Fund. I have the letter here from January 2012 regarding the grant and what it was for. Top of the list of its purposes is, and I quote, to restore the operational standard of the Grade 2 listed Scenic Railway. So what are we going to do? I'll leave it up to you to resolve it.
Thank you. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. I want to be very clear at this point that not being able to act directly does not mean we cannot act indirectly. Everything that we are doing now is to try and secure a proper functional future for the Scenic Railway. And I think in relation to that, the most useful thing I can do is read out the letter that I sent to the Right Honourable Lisa Nandy MP on the 28th of January when we realised what was happening. Dear Minister, I am writing to you to raise an issue of great concern both to Thanet residents and to the preservation of our culture and history as a whole. Today, Thanet residents were informed that Margate Scenic Railway, a Grade 2 star listed structure, the only structure of its kind in the country and of international importance in terms of its construction and the history of seaside heritage, will be removed from usage as a ride by its current owners, Dreamland Margate. It's being removed from use as a ride because it is now, in the words of Dreamland, unviable, as keeping it working as a ride will require the employment of specialists to assess the ride daily due to the nature of the structure. We are advised by Dreamland that the Health and Safety Executive has specified that the track needs to be inspected daily to remain in use. Dreamland have estimated that around 5 hours of checks per day would be required to keep the ride operational. We currently await confirmation of this. Health and safety is clearly paramount, and if the advice is that the ride can no longer be safely operated, then we accept this. The safety of residents is our utmost priority. However, to our understanding, under current listed building legislation, there is no requirement for listed structures to be in operation, simply maintained. And I would argue that both operation and maintenance are equally significant for structures such as the Scenic Railway. I would argue that where the operation of a listed structure is integral to its heritage function and relevance, such as in the case of a structure listed specifically due to its status as the oldest roller coaster in the UK, it is exceptionally important that listed buildings are protected not only in terms of their structure, but also in terms of their operation, as it is their use and role that makes them significant. I would like to request a review of the importance of operation within listed building status to ensure that structures listed due to the nature of their function and the importance of their utility are protected in terms of their operation as well as in the maintenance of the structure. Thank you.
Thank you. Did I see Councillor Yates' hand up? Did you put your hand up? Okay, off you go.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to thank residents for coming to this meeting and waiting so patiently. The Scenic Railway is more than a roller coaster. It's a living, clanking, rattling monument to a working class tourist life. As a ward councillor, I'm furious with Sans Heritage for their short-sighted, greedy, reckless action that puts profit before people. But I have serious concerns about why TDC are doing so little. I'll focus on 3 questions and then move an amendment to the motion based on those questions. And this is the first and most important question is, why haven't TDC picked up the phone or met with Historic England to discuss the situation with them? And I ask that because this morning I spoke to Tom Foxall, the South East Regional Director for Historic England, after messaging him 2 days ago on LinkedIn saying, can we have a chat? And he said, yeah. He tells me that he came to the Scenic Railway in summer last year to have Sans Heritage explain the situation to them, but they provided Historic England with no evidence as to why it was shut down, but it was just verbal communication. He says the situation is terribly disappointing. And having spoken to him just this morning, and I've got them in my notebook so I can quote him directly, the Regional Director for Historic England South East, Tom Foxall, said, there are levers that TDC can pull to encourage SHL to take action. And that's from Historic England. I asked him about this motion tonight and said, look, if that's the case, would you be willing to meet with Cabinet? He said yes. I asked him, would you be willing to have that meeting put onto this motion tonight? And he said yes. Happy to have that meeting with TDC put on the motion tonight. So I beg all of us in this room, if you are truly saying what you say, go meet with Tom Foxall because he thinks there are actions and levers that can be pulled. Going back to my second question, have we submitted a planning enforcement complaint about the Dreamland neon lights that haven't been turned on after the filming of the Empire Light finished? They just haven't been turned on. A grade 2 star listed neon light that TDC spent £2 million on in 2012 hasn't been turned on. Why not? I don't know. Have we enforced them? Probably not. I asked this question to the leader by email today, earlier this week. No response. Third question. Why haven't we taken any action against one of the original Sands Heritage shareholders who bought Neyland Rock in 2016? And as we can see out this window, it's falling apart.
Councillor Yates.
So to sum up and move the amendment, because I think that's the important part. Our amendment tonight, the Green Party amendment, is to amend to include the following words at the end of the motion. And this is where I quote, and I'll hand you over a piece of paper with it. Apologies, councillor, for printing off some paper. Further, and this is the wording, further, we request that Historic England South East Regional Manager Tom Foxall is invited to attend a separate meeting with Cabinet and relevant TDC officers to discuss the levers TDC can pull to encourage Sands Heritage Limited to reopen the Scenic Railway. Thank you.
Okay, so we're dealing with Councillor Yates' amendment. Don't we need a seconder for? Thank you, Councillor Pressland. Okay. Anyone want to speak on this amendment?
I think it's important that members hear the response that we've had this evening from Historic England in the context of what Councillor Yates has said. This is a letter to Mr. Poulter, our Director of Place. Thank you for contacting Historic England about the Scenic Railway. As the Development Advice Team Leader covering Kent, and because of my recent involvement in the Scenic Railway, I've been asked to respond to your letter. Like Thanet District Council and many local residents, Historic England was saddened to hear the news that the Scenic Railway is no longer operational. We've been involved in Dreamland for many years and are keenly aware of the iconic status of the Scenic Railway and its important role in Margate's seaside heritage. We've not made any public statements with Dreamland about their recent news, but have responded to press inquiries stating that we are saddened about the closure of the Scenic Railway in Margate, an iconic part of Margate's history and a highly visible testament to the town's seaside heritage. We think there are many possible ways to ensure the heritage of the Scenic Railway can continue to be enjoyed and celebrated. We welcome creative ideas that will give it new life and enable it to retain its important role in Dreamland and the wider town. We will be working closely with the owners as they develop their ideas for the ride. Prior to the recent public announcement, we were aware that the continued operation of the Scenic Railway following a derailment in 2024 was in question. We were made aware of the need for dramatically increased health and safety checks to operate the ride and acknowledged that these were likely to render the operation unviable. It is, of course, ultimately the decision of the owner on whether to operate the ride. Our focus is therefore on the future of the Scenic Railway. Even if non-operational, we think there are creative ways that this iconic Grade 2 star listed building can continue to be a focal point for Dreamland and the town of Margate. We have therefore offered to provide advice to the owners as they consider how the Scenic Railway will play a new role as part of the Dreamland offer. We are keen to work with Thanet District Council, other key partners and owners to consider the future of the Scenic Railway, and we would welcome the opportunity to discuss this further at an in-person meeting with you if helpful. We've already said that we would like to meet them. So what Councillor Yates has put forward in his motion is already happening, but I point out to him that what Historic England are putting in writing to the council is not the message that he's brought to this meeting.
Okay, so we're still on this amendment. With your agreement, I want to vote on this amendment. Are you happy with that? Can we vote on the amendment? Okay, those in favour of this amendment, please raise your hand, right or left. And those against, please. Me too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
Keep it our motion, not Historic England. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we've got hands on 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21. Any abstention?
Are there any abstentions? the amendment's lost. So we go back now. Councillor Davis.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. It's all right. The chair's a bit, and the wheels are jammed. I think that's a shame that was lost. However, we can take solace from the fact that there is an offer to have dialogue there, the same as Councillor Manners may not have got his motion through. But what I would like to request, because just to keep the context on this, because it's really important, I think, that we get some clarity from Historic England and some transparency about why they say what they say, because the Scenic Railway, and this is Historic England's listing, the reasons for the designation: rarity, the oldest surviving roller coaster in Britain, of international importance as the second oldest in Europe, amongst the 5 oldest in the world of this prominent entertainment structure. Design: scenic railways are amongst the earliest types, and it is an internationally important surviving example of this technology. Technology refers to the mechanism and everything, not just the base of it. Townscape value: as an important and evocative aspect of the seaside heritage of Margate, one of the earliest and foremost English seaside resorts, and Dreamland its principal park. Group value: it groups with Dreamland's other listed buildings, the Grade 2 Star Cinema and Grade 2 Menagerie. That's Historic England's words, so I would really expect to get some, a bit of a better response than the tone of that letter, but we're only going to get that with them coming in. So thank you. I think there's a lot of crossover here, and there's a lesson for all of us that perhaps better dialogue between all of us can get to where we need to be with these. But I would like, Chair, to propose a very small amendment. And it's very short and very tidy. It's been recommended by those with an interest, and I'll read it to you, and I can just get back. Sorry, it's because I was sending it to Dem Services as well, so my apologies. Oh, and sorry, one other point. I believe the Councillor Fellows mentioned this, but the Heritage Lottery Fund state the approved purpose of the 3 million grant was to restore to operational standard the Grade 2 Scenic Railway. That's quite clear, operational standard. 3 million of the money that's been thrown in there was for that, and that's stated by Heritage Lottery. So if it's put into operating condition, then it needs to be maintained in operating condition. How far do we take it? And
Councillor
apologise,
Davis.
I'm going to read my amendment.
Could I please have your amendment?
You can, as soon as I can just get it up on the screen. My apologies, I've had to rattle slightly. Oh, there we are. I would like to propose adding at the end of the penultimate paragraph, so we're not changing anything that's there, simply inserting, to clarify after the line about transparency, that we'd like to see it add the following sentence: this council will not accept the permanent cessation of the Scenic Railway operation without the full and transparent evidence being provided by the operator to demonstrate such a decision is actually appropriate, necessary and justified. And that will just reinforce what's being said there in the request.
Thank you. Turn your mic off, please. Thank you. That's the amendment. Has anyone got anything to say about that? Oh, sorry. So we need a seconder. A seconder. Councillor Rogers, thank you. Okay, I'm opening the floor now. Councillor Scobie.
Just very briefly, Chair. What exactly are we trying to achieve here? So we've had 3 amendments, and none of them are particularly proposing anything different, but rather than us having a unified statement of saying Dreamland, the owners of Dreamland are doing something that we all disagree with, let's all unanimously agree that, we've instead had 30 minutes of discussion about an amendment from you, Councillor Manners, saying, well, we should send all the evidence to overview and scrutiny. Happening already. had an amendment from Councillor Yates saying we should write to Historic England. Councillor Everett's just read out the correspondence we're having with them, and now we have an amendment adding further detail to something that's very clearly in the motion. We're sort of just wasting time and actually diluting what we should be doing here. Why can't we just move on to the substantive, all agree it unanimously, and move on to the leaders' report? Because we know Councillor Pugh wants to hear that shadow leaders' report very much.
Thank you. Councillor Manners.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, in answer to that, I think we do know what we're doing here. Firstly, it's to open a dialogue with Sands Heritage, if possible, to try to hold them to account and point out that we do have levers. And as Councillor Whitehead said, we have official and we have unofficial levers that we can use, and to let them know that this is a hostile act. That's the first thing that we can do. Secondly, we can take sensible, legal, professional advice from all outside stakeholders, including the offer that Councillor Yates has alluded to, and that the leader has mentioned in his the email that he's received. And thirdly, we should be looking at how we got into this mess. How on earth did we allow a sale agreement to go through without protective covenants that would have meant that we actually kept the ride in use? We put millions of pounds of public money into an asset, and then look forward. Yeah, but we need to understand how we got into this mess, so we don't repeat it. We don't repeat it on future assets. Otherwise, we'll be having the same conversation in 5 years' time.
Councillor Manners, have you done? Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else? So I'm going to go to the vote here. I think we're looking at a Monday night meeting. Councillor Wing.
I don't think I'm going to support the motion, but I just want to say I find it really strange that this company is so concerned about the health and safety of the roller coaster, but actually isn't that concerned about the health and safety in its music venue. Maybe we should be getting them to shut the music venue down, given people have died, and actually forcing them to reopen the Scenic Railway. And that's all I'm going to say, because I want to go home.
Councillor Whitehead.
As far as I can see, it's very clear at this point in that we can fight each other politically, which is a lot of what this is, or we can fight this decision and we can fight Dreamland. I would prefer to fight Dreamland, but it's entirely up to you.
Councillor Pugh.
I'll tell you what, I've had Charles running around a lot tonight. Apologies, Charles. I completely agree with what Councillor Wing has just said. And actually, I agree with a lot of what Councillor Whitehead has just said. I think it's really important that we're all united. All of our frustration needs to be directed to Dreamland. I understand Councillor Manners' frustration. I'm frustrated about it too. I think since the sale of the Dreamland site and the car park, I think this council, not just officers but councillors as well, have learnt a lot about disposing of assets and ensuring that actually many of our heritage assets are actually taken care of. I know that there's buyback clauses now in a lot of our asset disposals, like we did with the Granville Theatre. I'm not going to brag that it was us that disposed of it to a great company who are now going to do wonders with Dreamland. You're welcome, Councillor Everett. To Winter Gardens, sorry, not Dreamland. Give it time, maybe they will. The point I'm trying to make is that I think that this amendment, as put forward by Councillor Davis, isn't asking the council to do anything that it can't do or anything that is outside of its control. I think it should be added to this motion. I think it's important that it is, and I think then we all need to focus on directing our frustration to Dreamland, because as Councillor Wing said, I wasn't on, she didn't say this, but as she said about the music venue, I wasn't on the licensing committee when we as a council or the committee decided to up the number of live shows and events that Dreamland could do. I supported it at the time as the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economic Development because I felt that it was important that Dreamland was able to diversify, to better make it financially viable to operate the entire Dreamland site. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that a ride that had been mostly renovated, properly renovated only 10 years later and practically rebuilt, would then potentially close less than 5 or 6 years after we had then gone through that disposal. So I think it's really extended their operating hours and their live events. So I think it's really important that we direct our proper frustration to Dreamland because, they not only need to be making sure that the Scenic Railway reopens because it's part of the vibrancy of Margate as much as the Turner Contemporary is, and the Old Town and the beach and everything else. But I think it's really important that we all as councillors put enough pressure, as Councillor Wing says, on Dreamland, particularly for enforcement, but what we can do with our voices, because actually one death during one of the music events is far too many, but we're seeing far too many people hospitalised, the events don't look safe, and
I need you to stick to the amendment.
So apologies, that's why I hope that we can all support the amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm really keen to go to the vote. If you haven't got anything really important that hasn't been said already, please can I go to the vote? Councillor Crittenden, don't let me down.
Sorry, I am going to use a phrase that hasn't been said already. I do support it going to overview and scrutiny. I do believe that there is value in an inquiry. My concern with the amendment is just the words "will not accept," because what I've heard before is that we may have to accept, and without really fully understanding a lot more information that we haven't yet got about what our legal restrictions and everything else are, we may be tying ourselves into something that we can't do, and that's the words I have a problem with. So that's why I'm really not confident about supporting this particular motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Last word, Councillor Everett.
I share Councillor Crittenden's reservations about council saying what it will and won't accept when it doesn't actually have the powers to enforce its will on Dreamland. But I also recognise that the wording conveys the strength of feeling of
Councillor
this council.
Everett, I'm sorry, may I ask you to stand up, please?
I apologise. I also recognise that the wording proposed conveys the strength of feeling of the council, and that's really what I wanted to achieve this evening. So I'm happy to support this amendment.
Okay, I'm going to the vote. So we're voting on Councillor Davis's amendment, please. If you're in support of it, please raise your hand, right, left. I don't mind.
Those against?
Those against, please. Any abstentions? That's passed. Well done, everyone. That's passed. Now we go back.
It gets to summary.
Just by way of summing up on the substantive, can I just be clear, because what's in the original Heritage Lottery agreement has been quoted, that agreement no longer exists. There is now an agreement between the lottery and Dreamland, which we do not have. Now, we assume that it says very much the same as the original agreement, but we don't know that, and we will try and find that out from the Heritage Lottery Fund. Well, I think we've got a copy of the original grant agreement, but we'll, yeah.
Council, please, let's vote on the substantive motion. So those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those against? Those against? Any abstentions? You can't have two votes, Councillor Davis. Thank you. That's carried. Well done again, everyone. Okay, nearly a third of the way there. So, leaders' report. That's no more than 7 minutes. Comfort break, no more than 7 minutes. Please don't sit around chatting. Go to the loo, do what you need to do. 2 minutes, 2-minute call. One minute, and we're back in.
But the quorum, council quorum is only 25% anyway, so Charles has been very.
He has. Okay, councillors, please take your seats. I've a very important question to ask. Please take your seats. Please take your seats. Please take your seats. I have a very important question to ask council, and it's this. The time now is 10:30 or 10:31, but I have to ask you, in your opinion, do you think we will conclude the rest of the business by 11:30? Before you answer, if you think not, we close the meeting right now and we come back on Monday evening. So this be the question I put to you. Do you think we will get through the remainder of the business by 11:30? Those that say yes, say aye. Those who want to come back on Monday say okay, we'll have an extra hour. So please remember what I've told you when you're giving your speeches, questions, extra.
I think that was about it.
Okay, let's resume then. So, Leader, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, for the umpteenth time this evening. And we're not finished yet, I don't think. I think we can get this meeting done around 11 o'clock, so I shall rattle through the Leader's report. I want to start tonight by celebrating the Council's role in securing the future of Pie Factory music at the Ramsgate Youth Centre. Of course, this was enabled by the award of a capital grant of £535,000 by the Ramsgate Neighbourhood Board. This is one of the first major outputs from the Pride in Place programme nationally, and partly because of that, it has secured some wider attention. It is a board decision. It would not have been possible, however, without some intensive work by our officers to get to a position where we could advance fund the grant from the Council's other regeneration resources and keep KCC from putting the site up for auction in the meantime, even though they still managed to put up a for sale board. We should also recognise all the time, work and emotional energy that Zoe and the team at Pie Factory put into securing the building's future. This administration was determined to help, and I am proud that the council has been part of the solution by enabling the neighbourhood board to intervene. On the subject of the Ramsgate Neighbourhood Board, the interim chair, Brian Halton, will be standing down after tomorrow's meeting, although he will continue to chair the wider Thanet Partnership Regeneration Board, and I'm grateful to him for his work in both roles. I'm also pleased to note that Detective Chief Superintendent Ellie Maggs is joining the Ramsgate Neighbourhood Board. DCS Maggs, who lives in Thanet, is the Divisional Commander for East Kent, and she has extensive high-level experience with the Met Police. I've already spoken to her about the need to tackle antisocial behaviour issues in Ramsgate. She has a clear focus on violence against women and girls, and I am encouraged that she is able to commit the time to serve on this board. Earlier this week, we published our proposals for the Pride in Place Impact Fund, and I'm grateful to both our local MPs for their support in shaping these ideas. Sir Roger Gale has kindly agreed to take part in the assessment of proposals that we're inviting from the 8 town and parish councils outside the major towns, 7 of which are in his constituency, and we will be continuing to engage with Polly Billington over the proposals. We'll also be listening to the views of Broadstairs and St Peters Town Council, as well as the wider public, and of course our own councillors before the awards are finalised. There are bound to be views that other projects should take priority or that the money should be allocated differently. We've had to be mindful about the timescales, the risk of placing obligations on third parties, and the need for the projects to make a visible impact. Although the council has not been at the forefront of it, we have been supporting the Isle of Culture initiative put together for 2029 by Polly Billington, and officers compiled a data pack for her team to inform the expression of interest. The competition is likely to be fierce, with a short list of 8 to be announced in March. At that stage, the council would need to become directly involved. And even if Thanet was not ultimately successful, there would be significant benefits in putting together a full bid, which would receive some seed funding. In terms of Margate's cultural profile, few people can have missed the publicity generated by Madonna's recent visit and appearances with Tracy Emin. Ramsgate has also weighed in with the choice of Look Mum No Computer to represent the UK at the Eurovision Song Contest on May the 16th, and we wish Sam Battle the best of luck. Plans for 2 iconic Thanet venues were shared with the public earlier this month, with Westwood One Theatre holding an event at the impressive new Margate Digital Campus in the High Street to showcase their ideas for the Winter Gardens, and our own scheme for the Theatre Royal attracting around 250 visitors to see the latest plans. Both projects will be important legacies for this council, and I'm excited to see them moving forward. The Regeneration Partnership Board had a tour of Margate Digital in January, and it is fantastic that we can now offer such a facility to students here in Thanet. Back in Ramsgate, work is well underway at the Clock House, and engagement sessions are taking place to get public feedback on how the museum should tell the town's stories when it reopens. One session took place last week at Westwood Cross, and another will be held tomorrow morning at Ramsgate Market. Less obviously, perhaps, the extended Newington Community Centre is approaching handover, which will be a landmark in that it will be the first scheme delivered by Ramsgate Levelling Up funding to be completed. The community centre is at the heart of Newington and has been much missed during the closure for the building works, but I know everyone concerned is looking forward to getting back in there and delivering even more for the local community with the new facilities. The Overview and Scrutiny Panel recently invited the owners of Arlington House to an extraordinary meeting to explain themselves in relation to the ongoing safety issues at this Margate landmark building. It was clear that the responses would not be satisfactory when their representative suggested that leaseholders could take out mortgages to pay for the works. The Building Safety Regulator is the primary enforcement agency for Arlington, as it is for all tall buildings, but the Council and KFRS each have a role to play, and Cabinet makes sense. I've lost something off the bottom of the page. But anyway, Cabinet has been keeping Polly Billington MP fully informed as well. The MHCLG consultation on proposals for local government reorganisation in Kent and Medway closes a month today, with a decision due from the Secretary of State on the geography of the new unitary council due in July. Behind the scenes, preparatory work is underway to ensure that each council is ready to play its part in the aggregation and disaggregation work that will then start in earnest. It is difficult to overestimate the scale of this exercise, And some good news amid the chaos about elections during 2026 was the allocation of £63 million in funding to support LGR across the 21 areas involved. We'd already decided that we would review our own budget in September to consider any costs falling into 26-27, but this should help. Although not part of LGR, the consultation on the shape of the Margate Town Council is now in progress, with a postcard sent to every home, and we encourage people to get involved. It closes at 5 o'clock on Monday, March the 16th, but we've already had 400 responses. Another important consultation that we intend to start soon will be on a new public spaces protection order, which continues to have the support of the local police. I don't intend to revisit the history this evening, but we recognise that the absence of an active PSPO in our town centres has been damaging, and we will not be deterred from prioritising their safety and amenity by the legal posturing of bullies. Equally, it means that we are being held to a different standard to other authorities in terms of evidence and detail. We are working with our legal advisors to meet that challenge and intend to bring forward new proposals in the coming weeks. I want to thank all those who attended and made possible the inaugural Voluntary Community and Social Enterprise Forum, which I chaired when it took place in Broadstairs last week. This forum was a recommendation which came out of the OSP projects on external funding, and it was obvious to me that groups in attendance are anxious to build on the good relationship with the council and potential for mutual support that has come out of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund programme. As a council, we recognise and celebrate the work that the sector contributes to our community. And I'm sure in this connection that Councillor Austin will want me to mention the forthcoming Ramsgate spring litter pick, but I'll let her pick up the detail in her response. Finally, I know that the sudden news this week about the closure of St Lawrence College in Ramsgate has saddened the community beyond its students, staff and parents. As well as the loss of an historic institution and the background to that, there are many questions to be answered about the future of the site, including the community use of its sports facilities. The school's governors have said that the site is available for development, but it's important to be clear that there has been no discussion about the closure or any development scheme with this council. And while of course we are legally bound to consider any planning application on its merits, that will include evaluating it against the policies in our local plan, including the Green Wedge. I think the lack of any advance notice to any party tells a particular story about the governor's approach and their motivation, which does not appear to be based around their own school community or the area in which it has operated for around 150 years.
Thank you. Councillor Davis, do you have any questions or comments emanating from the leader's report?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Leader. Again, I'm going to go very quickly here, because a lot of what we've discussed here is not necessarily going to cause contentious or rows. I think it's excellent news that Pie Factory has been saved as a facility. It's an incredibly valued facility by the youth and so on. I'd like to see it even more, broad appeal, as it were. Having got a teenage grandson living in the town, the value of the Pie Factory and those systems is inestimable. So well done to everybody. It's a shame it got to the point where it had to go down the route it did. And well done to all those who found that route where we are able to forward fund it until the grant money was made available. Exciting times, new beginning, if you like, for the Ramsgate Committee. I understand Brian Horton's done an excellent job and continues to do so. So, we'd wish him well on that. I understand he's doing this so they're thinking it could be somebody more Ramsgate centric that would chair it was the motivation. Everyone knows my position on Ramsgate and being a Ramsgatonian, so we can't argue that one. The divisional chief, police commander joining the board is also, of course, to be welcomed because it's more collaborative working. So we'll just like to welcome her. Pride in Place Impact. This is the village scheme, isn't it? And the rural scheme, because we've got so many Pride in Place. Again, quite exciting that the councils that don't normally get a fillip in the arm have got the opportunity to competitively bid on this. Hopefully not everyone will go for the maximum, and then there will be enough to go around. But certainly, I don't know, we've got Cliff's End to think about as well, but I better not say that because it could be. But yeah, no, so meeting with the Thanet MPs again is the collaboration and getting the support of the MPs. Although some roles are ours and some are theirs, it's important that we do have that dialogue. And I'm pleased to hear that the council's engaged with Sir Roger Gale as well on this, so that there's a broad spread and it's not just too one-sided in the makeup of the decision making. Because of course we do understand it's a cabinet decision. So I'm pleased to see Sir Roger is in there. With regard to the Isle of Culture, let's see what comes out next month, but quite exciting. But anything that can give us a stronger presence and recognise what we are. This place has an island culture. It's not always the one that people would want, but we do have a very strong culture and sense of identity. I see one of my Ramsgate neighbours over there with a wry smile at the top. Again, Eurovision entrant and Madonna. I heard Madonna was here. Woohoo! What is quite exciting is having a local person representing us at Eurovision. Quite what he does, how it sounds and everything, I haven't got a clue. It's a bit avant-garde, I believe. But hey, it's representing Ramsgate. Well, if we're going to be creative, I think sometimes. Anyway. Winter Gardens and Theatre Royal. Probably don't need to say too much more other than welcome the fact that the public are being engaged, ideas are being sought and things are progressing. More than that, I don't think is necessary. And also, congratulations on those actually bringing Newington Community Centre to fruition. We have plenty to say and plenty concerns about other aspects of what was formerly the Levelling Up funded stuff, but is now Town Improvement, Pride in, whatever it's called this week. A lot hasn't been delivered, but that has, and it is again a great facility which helps cater for the community groups and things. And I've been to events there myself and thought it was great before it was done. So as a facility, Arlington again. Chair of ONS invited them in. I was proud to be part of that committee and others here. I don't think anybody could say that we didn't give them the appropriate response and hard time that they deserved. What is positive is that there's an open dialogue and they have promised at this point to come back and account for how things are progressing on the promises made. That, I believe, is quite a big step forward to having no dialogue and just being ignored. And I think we have to, fingers crossed, many a slip, fine words, butter, no parsnips, etc., etc. But hopefully the message was delivered there. Very quickly, LGR, let's see what happens. No one can say too much until June. It's a ministerial decision. It's important we're all heard. There's a variety of things. I don't think anybody actually knows what's happening now by the time which elections have been delayed, what's where or whatever. So it would be good to get some clarity on where things are. But I guess that's going to be a lot more effective once we know if it's going to be 3 or 4 unitaries.
You just wind up, Councillor. Just wind up.
Thank you very much. Additional funding announcement for that, it's the same process, so we're pleased with that. PSPO, we've never objected to the PSPO, only said it had to be fit for purpose, so I look forward to being part of that consultation. And congratulations again on the voluntary and community sector forum. Unfortunately, I was unwell and unable to be there, but I heard how effective it was, and having been and being on ONS and knowing that grew again out of the excellent work of ONS and
Councillor Austin is a champion.
Councillor, I need you to wind up, please.
I'll shut up with that.
Thank you.
Thank you all, and record time.
Councillor Everett.
I think we'll save the time, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Austin, do you have any questions or comments regarding relating to the Leader's report?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Leader, for your speech. Yes, it's fantastic news that we've secured the pie factory for Thanet's young people. Councillor Wing and I were there this morning, in fact, and it was great hearing Zoe explain how they're going to ensure their work reflects the pride of place vision. And well done to all involved. It's been really exciting to look more closely at plans for the Winter Gardens and the beautiful Theatre Royal, which I have to admit is my first time inside it. And I'm looking forward for tomorrow's Ramsgate Clockhouse session and to admiring the remodelled Newington Community Centre and the Margate Digital Campus as soon as possible. We're looking forward to hearing outcomes from the PIP Small Grants funding round and to the time when larger projects start being considered. On the PIP Impact Fund, we're really pleased that Piermont Park's on the list and welcome the public consultation. Town council staff and councillors have ideas they're looking forward to discussing, especially the gardening team, who've worked so hard to restore and maintain other gardens in Broadstairs since they took over that responsibility from TDC. It's great to be able to think about improving accessibility, restoring the fountain, creating new flower beds, but sustainability will be the key. It's the town council team who will need to maintain most of what's implemented, so we know you'll want to ensure they're engaged very early on. It's also good to see funds for the Sarah Thorne Theatre, which isn't only a theatre used by local companies, but also an important venue for the recently launched Coastal Community Learning CIC to provide the adult learning opportunities for Thanet residents that KCC no longer does, something as a former adult educator I feel really strongly about. We assume the new Sarah Thorne Theatre management team will be fully involved in agreeing how these funds are spent. It hasn't all been plain sailing since our last meeting, however. We've missed the PSPO in Ramsgate and we really look forward to the new iteration. We're surprised not to have heard mention of the Sea-Link project and the proposals to CPO the Hoverport site, given that thousands of residents had expressed their concerns about that. But it was really good to see TDC well represented by officers and councillors at the Planning Inspectorate hearings last month. But deeply disappointing that KCC wasn't represented at all, while Suffolk had large teams, including a KC. To fight this major threat to our environment, we really need all of us to be working together. Major concerns obviously have arisen over Arlington House, and I'd like to thank Councillors Yates and Fellows and officers for inviting them I can't read my own writing, to scrutiny. We look forward to further updates on how residents are being supported in the coming months as they start to receive their £40,000 bills. The decision to offer a long lease to a canning factory on Ramsgate Port as a short-term income generation scheme, with no apparent larger plan for this 32-acre strategic waterfront asset, has generated serious concerns in Ramsgate, including from the traders group and other representative bodies. And we wonder why, if soft market testing is appropriate for some of our other assets, it's not able to be considered in this case. The St Lawrence College news is a shock, impacting not only staff, students and their families, but many other users of the facilities, including the local language schools that run summer schools in their buildings. We watch what's happening with concern and interest. Local government reorganisation seems to be one step forward and two steps back, but we do appreciate being kept informed. It's not terribly motivating for residents to try to respond to a consultation when they know that Steve Reed will be the one who ultimately decides. But on the other hand, it's good to know that Margate residents will hopefully finally get the local representation most other Thanet residents enjoy, and it'll be even more important when we're swallowed up into a much larger and more distant authority. I was delighted to be at the first VCS forum last week and proud to have chaired the scrutiny working party that recommended setting it up after requests from Thanet's voluntary bodies. As the leaders mentioned, TDC's relationship with the sector has really improved since the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, largely thanks to the efforts of Nicola Wood and her colleagues. Our voluntary sector provides a vital lifeline to many residents, but it also encompasses much of what's best, most vibrant and exciting in Thanet, in community arts, music, film and theatre, for example. So it's good to see us commit to a strong two-way future relationship. Now all we need is to win the City of Culture and for Madonna to move here and bring a few of her friends. We could give her a choice of joining in with a litter pick or maybe joining a meeting like this. I'm sure she'd be thoroughly excited. Thank you.
Councillor Everett.
No, thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. I'm calling upon Councillor Fellows now, the Chair of Overview and Scrutiny Panel, to present his report.
I'll keep it brief, Chair. Thank you. As always, my full report is attached to tonight's agenda pack. A couple of things I'd like to say. I'd like to give special thanks to Councillor David Green, who is stepping down as my deputy. Your wisdom and experience and support over the last couple of years has been invaluable. So thank you. Oh, he's gone. I didn't realise he'd gone. Please pass my thanks on. And that leads me to welcome Councillor Joanne Bright to that position, and I look forward to working with you there. Also, thank you to my panel members for their diligence this month. We had a very long meeting for the budget and also the extraordinary meeting regarding Harlington House. And I know I was being lauded by councillors, but it's Emily that is the one that put that together. And it was her emails that actually got them here, fresh water into the chamber. I realise there's still some scepticism regarding freshwater, but I'm hopeful that meeting was constructive, and then we see the scaffold going up around Arlington House at the next few months and work starting shortly after that. If it doesn't happen, then we'll be asking more questions. I'm happy to, as always, take questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any comments? Can we move on? Thank you. Okay, item 17, committees, panels and boards. Now, there is a correction to the report. Paragraph 3.2 of the report is incorrect. Any casual vacancy arising for chair or vice chair roles on committees are resolved via a vote at the next meeting of the relevant committee, not full council. Group leaders may wish to take this opportunity to advise of changes to their nominations to committees, panels and boards for the remainder of 2026. So I ask, Councillor Everett, do you wish to advise of any nomination changes?
No, thank you.
Councillor Davis, do you wish to advise of any nomination changes?
Two, please, Chair. Just to confirm, Linda Wright is now the communities. That's right. I nearly got it the wrong way around. The member of the Shadow Cabinet and Councillor Bayford. No, so I got this all the wrong way round the other day, and I was substituting someone that was staying. Councillor Bayford will be serving on planning. Overview and scrutiny, rather than councillor. She's replacing Councillor Moore on overview and scrutiny. That's twice I've managed to get myself completely tongue-tied on that, and I have no idea why. But thank you.
Councillor Austin, do you wish to advise of any nomination changes?
My apologies on it.
Sorry, go on.
My apologies. Councillor Wright will be moving on to planning to reflect. And that was where I got myself tongue-tied between planning and overseas.
Thank you. Councillor Davis, turn your microphone off, please. Thank you. Councillor Austin, do you wish to advise of any nomination changes? Okay, thank you. Appointment to outside bodies. I move that the recommendation set out in the report be adopted. Would the Vice Chair please second?
Seconded.
Do councillors agree? Yep. Thank you. That concludes the business.